What's up, my fellow ambitious poker players, and welcome to the Mechanics of Poker podcast, in which me, Rene, aka the Wacko, and Adam Carmichael deconstruct high-stakes poker players, figuring out what it is about them, how they think, what they do that makes them so successful, with an extra focus on the obstacles they faced and the skills they had to develop to surpass them. This podcast is brought to you by Poker Ambition. If you are ambitious about making more progress in your poker career, go over to their site, pokerambition.com, and find out which service is best for you. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Hi there, my fellow poker enthusiasts, and welcome back to another episode of the Mechanics of Poker podcast. Today's guest helps you decide where in your wardrobe you should put your t-shirt, underwear, and socks. He personally needed to create some extra space in there for his Poker Masters purple jacket, in which he won $3.6 million, helping a net over $10 million in tournament earnings. However, he refers to himself more as a cash game player, which is currently what he spends most of his time on, playing and coaching over at Pokercode.com. I'm talking about the one and only Steffen Go0se.core Sontheimer. Very popular guest on podcasts, and for good reason. A lot of experience and wisdom, and very open in sharing and giving tips to the audience. Adam, I know you have listened to a bunch of his podcasts leading up to this one. What are you most curious about for today's guest?
Yeah, I'm very excited for today's guest, and I want to hear how he was able to climb the ladder to play some of the highest super rollers in the game, and then be able to come back to the cash game games and play that lower almost without any ego. And I'm really curious to know what lessons he's learned along the way. And he also seems very balanced in terms of his approaches to having a good life, being very healthy. He's a very health conscious guy. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear how he packages it all together to become this well-rounded individual as well as a very successful poker player. So yeah, so many questions on my mind, which I'll save for a little bit. How about yourself, Rene? What are some of the main things you want to get from our guest today?
I've been doing some research myself as well, Adam. Dove into his Pokercode course and learned a couple of things about the dice principle, the lookalike principle. So I have many more questions to ask Mr. Sontheimer, especially, he's rose through the ranks in both cash games, MTT. So I'm sure he's learned a lot, and I'm very curious how he did it, what kind of things that he was doing, how he approaches the game. So I would say, without further ado, let's get Steffen on. Welcome to the pod, Steffen. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, great to be here.
So I think, given my introduction of you as a professional wardrobe builder, we left a lot of the listeners pretty confused. So before we start, maybe you could explain to the listeners what you mean with building a wardrobe.
I mean, that's like, I don't know, one of my trademark teaching videos, actually. So it's just like a way of thinking when thinking about ranges in poker. So yeah, it's really that whenever I play a hand, I want to give myself options for. And I was looking for an image to create where, like, I had in mind how, like, my flatmate Rene Kempe always was living out of a suitcase, which you could already compare it to the range bet, right? Just like you have one place and everything has to belong in there. And some others, wardrobes, I had, for example, just like 3 compartments. And some others can look like very, very crazy. So to all the solver geeks out there, you play fancy, crazy wardrobes, which is super tough to remember. So this is pretty much just my analogy for giving ourselves options first. And then once we have those options, it makes it just way, way, way easier to choose like the right one for our exact piece of clothing, right? It's like, okay, if you have a drawer for underwear and you find socks somewhere, you know where they belong. And then we had it actually before we started recording that podcast already. The most important box or compartment to have is the one where everything else has to go into. So that's just like the most necessary one. And then it's something like you can be a little creative and build like fancy wardrobes every now and then if you think it really makes a difference, or you can simplify and just like play the suitcase strategy sometimes. And this is what is
suitcase strategy.
Is it all about in poker and in my wardrobes?
I love it. I love it. I'm 100% sure no one ever expected the podcast to start this way. So that's good. So I'm sure we will get back to that later in the pod, where I'm very curious about hearing more about your teaching philosophy. Um, Going back to your story, you've had big successes, both live, online, cash games, MTTs, maybe even sit and go, spin and goes. I don't know. But at least from what I'm aware of, cash games, MTTs, up until the highest stakes. Well, of course, just like everyone else, maybe people look at you, think like, oh, he's always been there, but this not happen over time, right? I think you wrote that it took you roughly 5 years to get to the higher stakes, which actually compared to people around me and people that we've asked so far, I would say is actually on the shorter side. I often see 6, 7, maybe even 8. So maybe also curious to see why it took you a little bit shorter than others. I wanted to start off with a quote, or at least actually I'm quoting you here. I love being better at something than others, and I'm very competitive. Okay. Now, me and Adam, we were immediately very curious when the first signs of this competitive showed up. I was imagining young Goose, in kindergarten, trying to outbuild blocks with the other kids, trying to build bigger sand castles. Was that kind of where it started, or?
I mean, I have to go back to me having an older brother, I guess. And beating him was the major goal of like anything that you could do. So right now, I'm just remembering his speech. I got married this year, and my brother gave a nice speech. And it was more like, I mean, we weren't like living together or seeing too often the last 10 years. So he was mainly including the parts of our childhood where we just spent all the time together. And I just popping up in my mind is the reaction of a good friend that he just told me after the speech. And like, I mean, I know you're a cool guy, he said, but oh damn, I'm so happy I didn't grow up in the Sontheimer's house. It's just like, yeah, it's that type of guy who no one wants to play with anymore. Just like random board games. I don't know. My mom probably still thinks that I'm just lucky, but it's like, as poker is like, Carcassonne isn't a game of luck either, right? Like I had like one other guy in the neighborhood who was like similarly competitive, and we were like having those big lists for, I don't know what's the English name for, like Settlers of Catan, something like that. We have, I think it's like the score is still like 253 to 227 in my favor, like stuff like that. So it's really that the joy of really analyzing something that you can influence, but it's just a game for fun for others. It's like that. So I think this started mainly board games, and especially just like having an older brother who just, I mean, naturally is ahead in anything to start off with. But and that transfers over to like school and anything. So like, I wanted to be like better at reading, better at math, better at anything, like in that, talking about like the age of like 5, 6, when you like even before school and stuff like that. So this is where I guess it all starts, and it's just, I don't know, always was a driving force.
So fun family reunions with Christmas, Catan comes out, and then it's like, oh, everybody
like,
wanting to win.
I don't know, for maybe a little a great game for everyone who loves poker out there is Camel Cup. Did you ever hear of that?
Camel Cup? No, I
Camel
haven't.
Cup. That's actually like you are following. It's like it plays like the role is in Egypt, and it's like a camel racing, but you are not the camel that is racing, and you are like rolling the dice or anything. You are actually someone who is betting on how the race ends, and then there's like fancy movements the camels can do, but in the end, it's just like EV equations. And I think it's very very low variance if you play it really with sorry mom, sorry dad, with like really really big whales, right? It's like, I think it's like I'm still like winning 19 out of 19 of those. It's like we play 4 people, so it should more be like 25% win rate. But this is a great game for everyone who likes beating others.
This remembers me of my Christmas. I played the game Coop. I don't know if you know it. COUP.
I think, I'm not sure.
It's a full-on bluffing game, basically. And my initial read was, my mom does not bluff. My dad, however, used a different strategy where he was trying to pick up my mother's bluffs, but obviously she never bluffed, which was quite obvious. So
The
definitely for
typical
the
not doing anything yourself, but then catching everything. It's like, yeah.
yes, I mean, I started off bluffing straight away. I immediately knew my wife, my mom, they would just never say you're bluffing. So I would just go for the biggest bluffs that I could find straight away. And I was 100% sure that they were not bluffing. My dad was quite kamikaze. He in his wardrobe, he had only that drawer where there was just everything, basically.
I just remember the first time with my now wife, when I met their family, or like we went on vacation together for the first time at some point, and they obviously needed to play a poker tournament with me. So we made like the most hyper sit and go I could create in a way. Um, and yeah, like her mom was the end boss. I tried to play like a somewhat reasonable strategy, um, like short, but she got me heads up. It's like the 30 big blinds race call with king five off. You just don't see it coming, and then it's like I just blew up with pocket fours. I still remember this one. So the trophy still belongs to her, and we didn't play ever since.
Do you sometimes notice from yourself when you just play a regular game with friends that you maybe, sometimes tell yourself, come on, Stefan, you don't have to be that competitive now in this game, in this environment. You have to hold yourself back sometimes.
That's I think like I have others telling me that it's like we can just play for fun. We're like, yes, that's true. It's like, and I don't mind losing at all, actually. It's like really that, but the game for me is the joy is in figuring out what's the best move, and not just like sitting there and rolling the dice and see what happens next. So it's like, if you ask me to like play bad, you're killing the fun for me. It's like, I mean, I don't know. It's not like I'm like the super try hard when like, or I'm not counting the cards or numbers or whatever is part of the game, when it's just like a casual thing there. Definitely not. But still, when I look at what's my next move, I try to make a move that makes sense in a way.
Yeah, you're like our brain is just analytical, right? When we look at the game that we're playing, whichever game, we're immediately trying to figure out how the game works, what the best strategy is.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do have conflict though when it's like, this is probably the best thing to do, but it would hurt my wife's game significantly, and then I have to choose between getting the
It's like
Latin fire out
I
there
think
or winning.
I started kind of have a routine now for a couple of years now, giving as Christmas presents to the family cooperative games. It's like that we can play together and we win together or lose together. That's like a different thing. It's like those zero sum games where one wins and
Hmm.
one loses. Just like me kind of trying to succeed always hurts others at the same time. While in those type of games, it actually gives them maybe more fun if we as a team win the whole show. Then, so it's like yeah, this is the maybe a little recommendation for everyone suffering from those problems.
Yeah, if I have to choose to play a co-op game and my wife is involved, I usually go for the co-op game because she's very competitive. I'm very competitive. Doesn't really end well. You tried. We tried Pandemic the other time. You played it.
Mm-mm.
It's
Nope.
like it's quite given there's a little pandemic going around. It's basically you as a team. Everyone gets a certain role, and you have to together make sure that various diseases don't spread to the world. So
Okay.
maybe a good suggestion for next Christmas, Pandemic. It's a good co-op game as well. Um, You also mentioned that what attracted you. I mean, you already mentioned that like strategic games. That's kind of what attracts you, right? The strategic side. With poker, it was also the combination that you could play it for money. What do you think adding money to the table adds to a game?
it's it's like keeping track. It's like in the end, it's just like the next level of putting down the results in a list with my buddies. And it's like if I just play and we forget it, it's like okay, it's over. But right, this is what I mean. It means something that I still remember. Like that I'm ahead 20 games in the Settlers of Catan match, right? It's like, and we played that when we were like, I was 12 and he 14 was like our peak time of that, I would say. So it's like something like that. And this is just, yeah, just tracking in the end. So it's really like you have the proof or longer feeling for that. Yes, you're good at that. Is pretty nice. Like it was never like the money itself. I think I didn't like the start of my career. I never cashed out anything. I mean, we are talking really about like pocket money here until the full tilt crash. I think I'll yeah. I think the first thing was like I needed a new desktop. So I cashed out something because this has to be an investment from my poker roll. I didn't have any, like, I mean, I was a student. I didn't have any real money. It was like 3-digit somewhere maybe. And yeah, so that was really, it's more of a high score than anything else.
Okay, so just a way to keep score. So you were not like me. I remember the first couple of times when I won money, it immediately got cashed out and spent it.
No way. No, I'm not a spender.
Very conservative guy. Okay, this probably has also helped you along your career. At which point you said, you would cash out some money, buy a computer, cash out some money just for necessary things. At which
Yeah.
point were you like, hey, I can actually buy quite a lot of new computers with all the money that I'm winning. Maybe
It's
I could consider doing this full time.
it's a great feeling that you could buy that stuff, right? But it's yeah, it's like what does it give to you? So it's like, okay, if it is an investment in like your future career or anything, it's like I always love the freedom that comes with it. Like I don't have to look in the bank account when I think about my next vacation. Like, okay, can we do this or that? Like I still have that feeling just because I always had the friends in a non-poker environment around me. I know there are lots of people who kind of lost track of like what normal things costs in a way when they are traveling like Vegas and everything. And like for me, it's, I don't know. I think it's expensive to spend like $100 on an average bad meal for a dinner. Like it's like, okay, you get the same thing plus the dessert for 15 euros in like where I'm from. So it's like, that just, so like something like that, people lose track of that. And I think I was always doing a good job, like still being okay with that. And then the first main decision point I had was I was just playing on the side when doing uni, and was like really having that thought, okay, instead of playing the video games that just kill my time and are somewhat fun, I just play poker instead, which yeah, gives me maybe an opportunity for the future. That was never that it's like super clear, um, and is fun for me as well. If it's not just like the biggest downswing of all times. So yeah, that was then the first time where I finished my bachelor's degree, where the question was, do I go for the master, um, keep studying like that, do it like, I don't know, 50-50, 70-30, whatever it is, or do I try this poker thing? And then I remember just like I don't know whether every one of us had that, but like one talk with like it was with my uncle actually, who just asked that question, which I keep asking for lots of things in life. It's like, which option would you regret if you don't do it? It's like that, okay, you could do your master's degree in somewhat engineering, you will end up with like a nice job career. See yourself in 10 years, I will definitely regret not trying that poker thing, right? Being stuck in a job that is probably good, well paid, I'm having good life. I think that was like the path I was going. Or the other way around. We're like, okay, do you try the poker thing really? Would you ever regret trying that? Like looking back and then no, like the way back was so easy. Like, okay, then I maybe lost a year, where like I think lost is a totally wrong word. And then I go back to what I did before. And this was like after thinking about it in that way, it was like the clearest decision of all times. And then it were at the same time, that was 2014, like all the circumstances coming together, that I met Fedor, Reiner, Ben in Canada, and then they wanted to go to Brighton to have a flat there. So I was like just going there. Yeah, my just desktop turned out. That was weird. I had a black screen for a second. So yeah, and that was just like, it was made very easy for me to just say like, let's go, I join you. And that's where everything, like the real poker career, then started.
You mentioned like if let's say for example you tried it, you said it's not really lost. That year that you would try it's not really lost. What do you mean with that?
I mean, you try something out, you learn things. It's like other people go abroad for a year and have like so many new impressions. I guess even when like you don't, or I wouldn't succeed in poker at that time, you still learn a lot about life. If I make the decision moving to England to try something out, to be your own boss, I mean, how in that world can you not end up like smarter than before, or learning life lessons in a way?
Yeah, so it's like the you either win or you learn mentality.
Exactly. It's like, it's not that success in the life sense doesn't necessarily correlate 100% with poker success financially in that moment.
No, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So basically, you started out playing poker mainly for the strategic aspect. You just really liked the game. When you turned sort of pro, did you have any sort of aspirations, or was it just like you take it one stake at a time, or were you like, no, I'm gonna make $1 million playing poker, or what
Yeah,
was
it's
like
like,
your driving force? What were like your goals starting out?
it's like being good, or like, what actually is the same with like all other things before, like sports. I never tried to, I don't know, accelerate there anywhere and play like higher. I wasn't like really good at something, so I always kept at a level, stayed at a level where I was like mainly winning. So this was the same in my poker career. I was that guy, like, before moving up to NL 500, I wanted to make sure to have like the most crushing graph on NL 200 for, I don't know, let's make it better 200,000 hands than 100,000 hands. That was pretty much more my approach. And I was enjoying that, and like that I mean, obviously that steady income and like doing maybe some calculations in my head what that might lead to. There was still the time of Supernova Elite back then, where like, oh, if I make it up to those stakes, I can target that, and that would be incredible, obviously. And it was like really step by step like that, really moving up the levels. Where maybe the next part of the story is really where that ends, where actually there was like a certain level where I could play pretty much everything if I think it's worth it. Um, but then it was easy to lose the fire again. Like, obviously you can move up to like, and then have the bankroll for, I don't know, NL 20K and stuff like that. But this is just, well, this is a process over time making all the money. It's like, not that, well, back then, if you play Zoom 500 as a regular or Zoom 1K, you can select any tables there are if there is a good table running. So there was like no new level you can achieve anymore. And that was the first time where I was like, yeah, pretty much I'm just sitting around waiting for action and really doing, in a way, a normal job, because there's not that fire like pushing you up anymore. And yeah.
How was poker different after that happened compared to before that happened? So you were really chasing up the level, always looking up, what's the next step, what's the next step, and then at some point, you know,
Yeah, it was really
you were like, okay, there's not really a next step.
yeah.
Did it really demotivate you?
Not in what I did, definitely. So, I mean, I was doing Supernova Elite for 2 years there, and the main driving force was really reaching those goals, like collecting those VPP, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
having, like, I remember the first year I managed to finish it like December 22nd, and the other one I was done by December 15th and could take like whole Christmas off. That felt great. And then there was actually that year where they fucked up the SNEs, and took all that away on Stars, like the VIP program. So it was like, okay, that was everything I did, and what now? I think that was 2016, and this is actually where another coincidence, that just like, that was the time Fedor already won everything, and he just like was kept talking to us like, you guys, you need to start all those high rollers, you need to play that, everyone is super shit there, let's just crush that show now. Like, okay, let's try that out, pretty much. I was never really into live poker, but it was, yeah, in a way, a coincidence that like, okay, Supernova Elite is not there. I mean, big scripting was the thing back then, everyone like running a script, having like multiple sites open. I never did that. I was too cheap to buy a proper computer. So my computer was not ready to run something like that. And I just like, and the worst when it comes to both hardware, software, I'm like, my grandma probably could help me here with what I needs to be done on the computer. Right? Just like, if I tuned in here and my sound was not working, I've no clue what to do. Like, really that kind of shitty with it. So that was never my thing. So I always stuck to playing way more. I played afternoon pools, Zoom 500, where everyone knew he's not really winning. Like, it's like, but, and we could play like search for a good table in NL 1K, 2K, but apparently it's like really, really bad players getting the best seats. And I would never get into it. I could battle for open seating, but then at the same time, it's like I like taking breaks. So if I want to make a break every 90 minutes, I lose all regular tables, which is like, yeah, then it's not really worth fighting for it. So that was it. That like, yeah, that cash game career back then was, I don't know, didn't work out, or I was like not really looking interesting ahead, or I needed to change how I did things. And then yeah, that all those life things came in between, and yeah, I started traveling with the guys that I guess most of you know out there.
So actually, you chose you preferred the comfort of the Zoom grind, because obviously I was active, very active back at that time as well, and I never really played Zoom. I was mainly playing the higher stakes and the scripting, and it was indeed what you said. Like a lot of bad players got the tables, which I actually always felt was great. Right? Usually the worst players are technically, they still try to find a way to make
But I
good money,
love
right?
that.
So they specialize in other areas. Like for example, okay, I get the fastest. I put a server next to the server of PokerStars and Isle of Men, play from there, and it scripts me in every game. Which I was like, okay, wow, the worst players have the best scripts.
Yeah,
This is
shout
amazing.
out
And I
to
was mainly
Nianla,
battling out
or
for
who was that?
tables. So
Uh, but it's really that I love the video you made about that kind of FIFA cards system, like rating system for that, where you need to understand that everyone is different and takes like, it's like not that everyone is trying to maximize the same thing. It's really like,
exactly.
yes, it's about the money, but in that moment, I was definitely not trying to maximize the money outcome. I loved playing. So it's like, I'm not sitting around for 2 hours to then get a good table on 5K. Would definitely make me more money back then, but I would hate life. Like sitting there, maybe even, I mean, who are those guys? Who's that guy from Israel who has like even like his alarm clock set to everything? Who was just like really the biggest, cool 1992.
Oh, cool. Yeah, cool 9. Yeah,
Like
he had all the
he
tricks in
can't
the
go
book.
shopping further away than 200 meters from his flat because like 24/7 everything is running there, and he gets like a phone call pretty much if someone joins like one of the whale tables, and it's like, and I'm like, this. I mean, this is the worst thing for me. I want to sit down. I want to play because and if I see a nice graph, whatever stakes in the end, uh, that gives me something. That gives me more than making infinite money. It's like, yeah, we'll probably come back to that point as well. Where like, it's not at that point, but later it's a question about what do you want to get from life, what do you enjoy, do you try to like, I mean, there are people with like infinite money in the bank probably still like trying to make more out of it, where like once you know how you think your life you want it to look like then that is just unnecessary pretty much, right? Where like I will have at some point a nice house in a little village somewhere and enjoy life there, and do stuff that I like. Where like, I don't need the infinite money for that. So it's really a different driving forces for everyone. Where it's fun to think about it in the poker sense, because just figuring that out about someone helps you so much to understand all the decisions. We're like, yes, if you're just maximizing money, I took the totally wrong career path.
Yeah, I can relate to that a little bit as well. But I think the main takeaway from this is that it's very important to understand what is your motivation in poker, right? Because there were also, I'm sure, a lot of players that were maybe choosing like the same approach as you, but were not as conscious about it, and then afterwards felt very bad. Oh, I wish I would have made more money in poker. You understand? Then it's not a conscious decision, and then you end up doing things and feel a little bit unsatisfied at the end, which, in the end is
It's
obviously not really the goal.
absolutely. I've so many names in mind from like back in the days, Zoom 500, where like most of them are playing high stakes now or were playing, and now just like seeing after a year, I had that just like financial regrets in a way. Where yes, I was probably putting in 5 times the hours or 3 times or double, I don't know, to get out like whatever SNE makes pretty much, with some added winnings. And then I look up the graphs from Invoker and Iceman. I guess you know those two names.
Iceman, yes, of
They
course.
stopped playing 500, and we were like one level, like crushing those Zoom pools. And they just started scripting, playing all the good 5K tables. And then I looked it up, like, okay, he made $1 million there, he made $1 million there, and I'm like, yes, I got my 200K in rake back, plus a little winnings, probably playing like 2 times the hours at least. definitely like more than 5 times the hands. Where like, yes, there was like one point where I could regret things, but if I'm honest with myself, I didn't. So it's like, yeah, definitely like.
Yeah, that is very good. Then you made the right decisions at that moment.
Yeah, it's just like,
I'm
so
sure.
it shouldn't
Yep.
be about like, I mean, definitely this shouldn't be like whining about like you could make like smarter decisions if you take like different, like, I mean, for different people that is just like smarter to do the one thing, but it's really that consciousness about what you enjoy, what you want to get out of it, what you are doing it for. I think this is very, very important. So like just knowing that about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate, just as you, to ask a lot of questions, right? There's it really depends on what your definition of success is, and you try to reach that definition of success for yourself.
Yeah.
But often people don't really think about it, and then they just copy what other people are doing, and they copy what the general poker population is saying, right? And then you end up just going somewhere without really knowing what you want out of it. Um, I'm sure Adam has been silently waiting on the sidelines. Well, also has a lot of questions. I mean, there was a lot of goodness in here. Any questions for Steffen so far, Adam?
Yeah, many questions. First of all, I'd like to bring it back to the start when you started your poker career. So I've got the image of you being very competitive with your older brother in particular. You graduate from uni and then you decide that you're going to take a chance on poker and give it a go full time. Was there any skills you developed in the past or any life experiences that you developed that allowed you to have confidence that it was going to work out? Anything you developed at that point?
I mean, I think I developed it throughout my poker career, like while playing next to uni. I mean, you can see it actually in my uni grades. I mean, I was always like one of those guys where everything is easy in school, like um, did that well, and then I started pretty good off in uni as long as I kept working for it. And then it was like that switch. Okay, poker got more interesting, and then I only like learn as much to exactly pass the exams, which was like not going there and learning for 1 week was pretty much the line for most of the majors. And yeah, so that was, I was then making that decision. It was like, if we are honest, it was more like 95% it's working, and I know that I can make amount X. And yeah, I don't know, maybe something I developed before is really that trying to always understand the bigger picture. We're like, okay, I'm like, there's lots of unclarity in the world of poker, how it will develop, rakeback systems, where is it allowed, where not, etc. How do you, can you do something with the money in the end, or is it like some kind of semi illegal money that is lying around? So stuff like that. And I remember that still back from school, where I guess I like, my motivation was not to make the best abitur. It was more like making the somewhat okay, reasonable best abitur possible with really least amount of effort. So like, I'm the guy who's just like that. Like before those last 2 years of school, we get handed out like one thing where everything is explained, how it counts exactly into your, well, degree that everyone sees in the end. Where no one had a clue. They were just like doing that, and I'm like, okay, it's like I know I need to choose either music or art, but out of the 4 semesters, only 2 of those count. So obviously, I found a smart way, because I'm super shit at both of that, to like find a way around that. I have like I don't know, we have a point system up to 15. 15 is best. So I finished like, I took arts, and one time I just did like a presentation in something in one of the semesters where we actually didn't have like big art to do ourselves. We had like one exam. That is fine. We learned something. I can do that. And I do a presentation to get that extra degree. So I ended up with 13 points there, and another one with 13 points. And the others were like 6 and 5. Like just, but like having that consciousness where to put the effort in to really succeed in that way. It was the option to have like, yeah, an optional extra subject, which was informatics. We're like, yes, that was just super chilled and easy, just a fun round with like 8 geeky guys, and everyone's just like smashing it. And like, by using that, I could just like, all the other bullshit subjects in my eyes didn't have to count. Like 0 courses of religion, where like, I told like the first lesson, that teacher, I hated him. I told him like, I don't give a fuck, because I know it doesn't, like that kind of stuff, where this is relating to poker as well, just like finding, I mean, being a little after the best rake back, then like finding some ways, and then consistency with like pushing things through. That's maybe something you can take as that.
Yeah, I like that. It sounds like you've always been able to see the bigger picture and then navigate your way to that endpoint in a kind of concisive way rather than just doing actions, hoping to get to somewhere you've already thought it through and spent some time. So for yourself, when you first got into poker, what were some of the initial early goals you set yourself? Did you have any initial little milestones that you wanted to reach early in your career?
I mean, first, just trying out in the very beginning, right? Someone told me, hey, you can get those 50 free bucks there, and then let's go from there. And I was like, oh, there are strategy articles about that. And then I first tried like a short stack strategy that you played with 20 bigs, then a mids, and I tried like what is working, what makes sense, until then like really getting into it and enjoying the theory behind it, watching the videos of like, I mean, super shit plays back then, obviously, but it was like still, yeah, that was great, and that got me hooked in a way. And then it was really just like that, level by level. So I remember probably like the worst moment in my career where I really like, when I got up to NL50 at one point, it was like, I don't know, 25 stack bankroll management. So I had $1,000 on my account. I played NL50 and I lost like, I don't know, just like enough that I couldn't play NL50 anymore. Just like, I mean, just losing 5 stacks in a session or something. And then like, okay, I had that moment, which I usually do not have too much. Like that classic tilt moment, move up, NL200 heads up it is, just to win it back. Yeah, luckily that went well, but this is pretty much the only thing. I guess other people have way more of that, or like how often did you go broke, or etc. I could stick to plan if I learn from a site that seems reasonable that 25 stack bankroll management is the thing. I look at my bankroll, and if it's not $1,250, well then I play NL25 or just add like one table of NL50, and like sticking to those, like again, setting frameworks, a little like the wardrobe, right? Setting frameworks and then sticking to those instead of like creating a new crazy box, because I think it's the best thing I can do now, like really taking emotions out of the gameplay. Even though I hate, I love whining and flaming, and is like, other people might think I'm the biggest tilt box in the world, but I think I have a good way of letting it out somewhere else and not put it into what I click on the tables actually. Besides some ace 5 suited jams, but that's it.
Yeah.
GTO.
So yeah, when I've been doing a bit of research on you and listening to your podcast, I've always found that there hasn't been many noticeable obstacles. It almost feels like you've had this kind of progression where you've almost just like every opportunity has just been a learning, progression, next level, and very calculated and very almost like linear. So for you, like looking back on your career, were there any kind of big obstacles that you faced, any moments where you were doubting either yourself or the path you were on? It feels like you've always had this good self-awareness to navigate your space. But was there any moments where you hit a roadblock or hit a wall where that wasn't true for you?
Actually not really in the cash game sense, because they are obviously at times you feel like, okay, you need some new input to progress. Maybe it's just a downswing, where I really have that image in mind of like that awesome looking nice overall graph, where obviously if you zoom in for like and choose a certain 20,000 hands, you might feel like the worst player of all times, just like those typical upswings and downswings. And this is what I try to do myself, to really have that, all right, let's freaking zoom out, and then everything looks nice again. So this is obviously something. I never played like those too many normal tables or heads up. I never had those, like, people are talking about nemesis, or I can't play this guy, or he's fucking me up. I obviously have that feeling in the zoom pool as well, but this is, I guess, something that people get annoyed by. So just by playing so much zoom, I didn't have that. And then actually the cash career always went kind of smooth, just because I'm so nitty in a way with not with like the money investment, but with the making sure that I beat that table. So I was like, even if I think that table is okay, and I don't know why they are battling now, and I think I'm better than like 4 of the 5 players on the table, sometimes that was the case. I was like, no, that's not worth it. So I was like, really, Zoom was another thing, but then choosing tables is like, yeah, I want to be 100% sure pretty much. So I think this was a big reason then, and that definitely looked different in tournament life, because there it's not under your control. So there were definitely moments where you ask yourself, does everything make sense, right? It's just like those others, Fedor keeps winning everything, yeah, and then like you think like, okay, just like in theory you probably play better lots of spots. Yes, there is a life element, but then in the end, I mean, in the first year, I could make a nice compilation out of freaking insane suckouts. Just whining about pre-flop all-ins where, yes, it was probably playing, how many hands do you play live? Maybe 10,000 hands, and you are like 10 stacks under EV in those 10,000 hands. That looks shit, right? We're like, there's nothing you can do about that. And that was something that was tough. And I remember maybe one time where we had right? I obviously had shares and others as well. So the year I wasn't playing too much, or I was just like trying to get a little into live poker, was 2016, after my 2 times SNE. And there, that was the year where Rene and Fedor chopped the super high roller bowl, the 300K in Vegas. I had, what did I have? Like 1% each or something like that. So it was like a 100K payday. That was, and I had no other investment in that tournament. I was just like, yeah, staying with them, and that was like the sweat I had. So that was like a pretty decent tournament. And that was like, and then we played like some of the Aria 25Ks, where I don't know, what did we have? Like, I don't know, 40% action on my own, and like some 10% swaps with like not only the Germans, but like that was like the typical type of investment where it's like, oh, I'm out. Oh, Stevie won it in the end, so I'm even again. It was like really just running, like pretty much not a single losing day in those tournaments. Where like that was smooth and made not only me but others ready to just like take bigger pieces. And then there was like one big trip we did that was to Vegas in November 2016 as like part of the coaching team for Kenny Hullard for the WSOP final table. And then there were high rollers. From there, we flew to Manila to play a Triton stop. And from there to Macau to play, I don't know whether it was Stars or another Triton stop, I don't know, where I think it was a consecutive like 45 bullets or so, not cashing. If I just look at like the pieces I have and my pieces that are obviously bigger, were like, I think I lost like a third of my roll. Could have been more if I invested even more, or like others got hurt a little more. Where this is like, I never had that before in cash, right? It's not possible in cash. It's like, I think what was a big difference there, because it really like was tough for me mentally at that point, just like losing that amount of money that I kind of won through hard working before, like my SNE money, where I think it was a very, very different feeling for people like Fedor or Reiner, where like, yes, they had their moments where they probably doubled their bankroll or even more than that, right? Fedor winning, what was it, W Coup main event, just like going from, I don't know, 100K roll to 1 million or something like that. I think that helps you to not realize that money in that way, and then losing 200K doesn't hurt you. Or like binking another tournament. I think like Reiner's career start was getting second in the Sunday Million in a way, where like it's different feeling than just like calculating your hourly and then putting the hours in pretty much. So that was the thing where like, yes, that was probably the toughest time, where then I grinded parts of it back in December online, so I had a good run there. Talking about the Sit and Goes, shout out to the 5K Turbo Sit and Goes on Poker Stars. And I don't 8 Super Poker, I guess, was our VIP. So shout out to him here and the good old times there. Yeah, that was probably the toughest one. And then obviously some more after then running super well for a while. Then again, I think, what was it, like 2018, where I felt like I was like pretty ahead of the tournament game. I don't know, like had the confidence because we did lots of those drafts, and I was like always top 3-4 picks, even from like the American side picking me very, very early. So that gives you good confidence. And then just like watching Justin Bonomo win everything by just like not being 100% convinced by lots of plays he did there, and just like, yeah, it's one flip you're out, and like when you're playing the biggest ones. So like just having that feeling of that, I don't know, one summer where you play the 300K and are the first person out, where it was like that weird format with 3 bullets, just like, I don't know, 1 hour, 3 times standard all-ins, 3 times losing 40% plus equity. Okay, you are out. And then the next time, and then like playing the million one drop, flipping out there and in like a nice spot. Like just that, right? It's like a classic tournament whining. In the end, it's like playing 2 Sundays, right, over the whole year. That's just what live poker is. So yeah, definitely. But it's like when you didn't grow up in the tournament world, it's different to work with it, I guess. And so it was really, really important to have that group of people around me. Just to like, that wouldn't work out for me just sitting here on my computer. I never played MTTs just like alone. I loved those little challenges. Let's be like 5 people, 10 people. Let's rent a nice house and play a series. Where like you see yourself as a team, even though everyone is fighting for himself. Just like locking myself here in that room to really grind tournaments. I couldn't do it at all. I would really be the biggest tilt box. Just like the skill or like the level of play you put in is just so not correlated to the outcome you get. This is something I can not work very well with.
Yeah. So it sounds like throughout your career, you've made a lot of kind of pre-thought out, almost like safety first, low risk decisions that have allowed you to navigate the poker world without less scars and obstacles than most players. Obviously, like you said at the end, when you had a lot of action in those super high rollers, you experienced a big downswing of your roll, but it seems like that was like an anomaly event. And I think a lot of players can learn lessons from your ability to think long term and your ability to see the bigger picture. It sounds like perhaps at times you could have been playing higher stakes with your role, and you chose to grind out higher win rates at the stakes you were playing. But going back to like your kind of personality type and how you kind of set your goals and targets for poker, it sounds like that's a good fit for you to take the kind of lower kind of EV option sometimes, but it's safety first and it's going to lead to a more solid outcome or more secure outcome. So yeah, very interested in that part. I just want to segue a little bit into your background in sports, because I've got a sports science degree myself.
I want to add to that, because I think it's really important that it comes back again to what you want to get from life, right? I had to say, like, if you take from like the German crew, if you pick one, or like ask everyone who's the person with the least chance of going broke, it's like 10 out of 10 people will pick me, right? This is just how I am. But at the same time, it's like, who is the last person who has a shot at like making, I don't know, 10 million plus? It will be me as well, right? It's just like that. What do you want to get from life? Is your goal like a little house and a nice family and living? Is that a great life for you? Well, then my approach is probably better. If you want to eat out in like 3-star restaurants every day and fly from like Dubai to Vegas to Melbourne and like take a private jet if possible, yeah, then different, right? So if like we especially watch the super high roller scene, it's like all those people who really made the money there, they had the risk to pretty much lose a lot as well. Or I mean, we don't see those people too much. Where like Start of Fedor is like winning the super high, or like winning the super high roller ball, having shares in Reiner as well, having that, and then obviously firing harder the whole summer to just ending it up with winning the 100K. Where like, I don't know how big his piece was, but ridiculously big compared to what I would take personally, with probably the same bankroll at that point of time. So it's really that, it's just like an equation. What is like, you can set your goals. Do you want to gamble for like having infinite money, whatever infinite means to you, or like want to have a high chance to achieve what you want to achieve? Or you just need to know that. Where same thing we see in the crypto market right now, right? If someone is telling me, yeah, like at one like, this is the high roller tournament talk at the table. Yeah, I was up to like 20 million in crypto, and now I have like 2 million left, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, did you really need to gamble that up? I mean, if you go from 20 to 2, it just means that you try to have the chance to make 100. Where like, this 20 and 100 is for the life I wish to lead. is not a difference at all, right? So it's like in my value system, he was risking everything to win nothing in a way. We're like, yes, but this is now where you need to know more about your value system. So that was just, it fits all together in my picture at least. So
okay, can I add on that? Like there's also, in my opinion, some people indeed see this different. Like, let's say, for example, you have 100K, okay, and you're still young. You might gamble it up, because going from 100K to 1 million, that's definitely, it changes your life quite significantly, right? But let's say someone already has 2-3 million. Are you really gonna put that on the line to make 20 million? Is like, to get back to that 2-3 million is quite hard. To get back to 100K from zero is a little bit easier. But you have way more to lose, right?
It's the thing. I mean, it's just like I wrote. I mean, everyone who is more interested into that, like, check out like something like prospect theory, just making choices between things. And that is, I mean, it's just so important to know what you want to get. Like, other people look at me and think like, okay, what the fuck is that? A boring life you want to lead? I mean, I need this and that. Like, let's talk to Bryn Kenny, right? It's like, he doesn't care whether he's like a negative 3 million. He still tries to gamble it up to 20 plus, because this is what he probably needs for the lifestyle he imagines he wants to lead. So it's like, everyone is different. And I think that's totally fine in a way as well.
Yeah, there is no right or wrong. There is only what works for you and what is in line with your goals.
So I'm intrigued. What is your value system, and how did you start to unravel and sort of find out the things you do value? So I think for a lot of us, we're kind of dragged multiple directions. We're often influenced by our parents, society, our friends around us, and we think we want success, the money, the big achievements. It's very hard to actually know what makes us happy. It sounds like from quite an early age, or at least early in your poker career, you had a clear value system, and you could actually weigh up the pros and cons and who you wanted to be. So yeah, just curious, what is your current kind of value system, and how do you navigate the temptations around that?
Yeah, it's definitely something I learned throughout the poker career. So before, I mean, I had a great childhood in a little village in the Black Forest. So it's like, yeah, you couldn't imagine anything better, at least for me. And then I've seen the wide world pretty much, or at least it feels like I had the potential to do anything I wanted throughout my poker career, just like by traveling so much. And I had like that one moment of realization, especially where I could never stay like 7 weeks straight in Vegas. So the summer I always split it up in 2 trips, and flew back home for like a 2 week vacation in like June in Europe, which is the best time anyways. And I mean, we all know it. Like, what I don't know whether Rene knows for a certain years, but like watching the World Cup, is like cooler when you do it not at 9 a.m. So it's like stuff like that. And there, I found out, I had a talk with a friend of mine there, just like, and she was asking me, like, where my next wild trips, where my next vacation. She was asking for a next vacation, where my next wild vacation goes to, and I'm like, not at like this year, right? This year is my vacation. Sitting here and like in my home base where I feel home, just like making a bike tour with you here and eating ice cream. That's like the perfect vacation coming down. And like, she expected more like, yes, then I fly to Australia and go on a crazy trip there. That was the first moment where I really realized, hey, this is what if I can't choose what I do right now, it was that thing and I chose that. And the other thing was it was New Year's Eve, I guess, or just the time between Christmas and New Year's Eve, where I had such a bad feeling about having to go to the Bahamas soon. It's a very, very bad flights to there, just because of like how the time zones and like the when the planes are allowed to start, to just do it all in one trip. And I had to get up, I don't know, 4:30 in the morning, January 3rd, to fly to the Bahamas. And I was talking about it like really as if it was a must and a bad thing, where I think in a way it's not okay to talk like that about flying to the Bahamas in January. It's just like, if it feels like that, something is going wrong. And this is pretty much where I made the decision that this is not it's cool and great, and I don't want to miss anything of what I had there, but it's not where I see myself. Where I don't know, I have others in mind. Let's say, I had a great talk with Nick Petrangelo, like we got super wasted, as we both like lots of beer, and then we had like, we went to a steakhouse and had like, I don't know, one of the, I don't know, like man's talk in a way, just sitting there for 3 hours talking about life. And he's like to me, like, I love that so much. Just playing a game, traveling the world, and doing what I really love. I want to do that for the rest of my life. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Not at all. Like, just like, and this is just how people are different. And this is where throughout there were many more lessons where it's really that moment where you realize, okay, what are your actual goals? Like, where's the, yeah, where do feelings start to come in, for example? And I always had that with being home. I think like I lived in Vienna for a while, and there's like it's the best city I've ever lived in, and it's the greatest place, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. But it will never feel home for me, which is just like, I don't know, it's a feeling. I don't know whether it comes from the childhood or it's just someone is like that, some other is not. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've got this almost like sat nav system where you're always listening to how you're feeling in certain environments, and rather than like prejudging, you're almost curious. Oh, why am I feeling this way about this situation? Like the Bahamas one must have been a bit of a red flag moment where you're like, wait a second, I should be super excited to go to the Bahamas. Why am I not feeling that? And rather than trying to push through that, that's a good warning sign to listen. Wait a second, maybe I don't want to be traveling as much. Maybe I want to be home and not judging it. I think that's a really again, self awareness keeps coming up when I'm thinking about how you're navigating your world.
Yeah, it's really that. I mean, that it's, I really have that moment sometimes. I don't know whether you have that as well, that it's like that you know what you want to say, but then already your mind is like, it's like, I want to express a feeling, right? That was like that time of the year where you meet lots of old good friends, and like people I can talk really honest with. Where like, it's like some others you think it through before what you really say a little more. And there's like, I was just like talking from our end, but this was a moment where like, can I really say that, like, even to a good friend? Is it okay to just like be a little whiny now about the problem of flying to the Bahamas? Where I decided it's not okay. I still did, but like kept that in mind.
Yeah, yeah, I can get that. It's always trying to judge like our groups and our environments. Are they almost ready for this version of me? Is this a problem that they're going to reflect on? And
Yeah,
obviously, Bahamas, I'm not sure many people would
yeah.
classify that as a
Or
problem,
like,
but
do
yeah,
they
I can
just turn around
understand.
like, what a fucking idiot talking to the next like, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. All right, I quickly want to segue into your background in sport and how that came about. It sounds like it's always been a big part of your life, maybe competing with your brother. So yeah, tell me through your kind of background in sport, which sports you like the most, and was there any crossover from the things you were learning in sport that were useful for you as a poker player?
Um, I mean, I always loved sports. I was not really good at it though. So just on the local level. So I started doing track and field athletics. Was the first thing. Then I played table tennis, and then it was like a back and forth playing football as well. So the other two things were like, the main things were, I don't know, age, I don't know, 10 to 14. I was like winning lots of stuff in the like on local level in like athletics, just running and like jumping and all kinds of stuff. Where there was the point with like 14 where all the others of my age group grew up faster. So it was really like, I was a kid and then like running versus men or that, and they just like all of a sudden jump a meter wider, and then it stopped winning. Where like I learned for the first time, okay, then it's no fun anymore for me, pretty much. So I felt, I tried maybe for another year, and I was like pretty much starting very late to then. I mean, I was like you can't imagine now with like me being pretty tall, but back then I was one of the small guys, and was really that. Yeah, so I lost the fun for it pretty much. So then I took that and put it more into table tennis. Then where, okay, I succeeded up to a certain level where like I was just for my local home club there. I could go to the, yeah, club one village further that is like I don't know, their first team plays second Bundesliga or something, and they like are really putting effort in their work with the young guys. Where like I'm like, no, I just chill with my guys and we play like the random bullshit league, but we end up winning it. So it's like fine, right? It's like more of that, more like that. And then same. I mean, football. I never grew up like playing football for all the time, so there was no shot. But that was more for like the people. But then I'm up for anything, right? It's now like still for Vienna. I like playing volleyball, basketball, everything. It's like not that I was really good at anything. It was just always a big part of my life where I at least had like 5 to 6 times per week something going. And that is just something that, again, like that reflecting at some point in my life, I thought about like, why did I never try to be better? Like really that what we described in the beginning, I just enjoyed like playing other people that are not good and then being slightly better. Just like with that team, it's just yeah, you go out and celebrate, and whether you do that 5 leagues higher on another level, it's like whatever, right? It's like really you can compare it to poker. It's like, why not, if you're enjoying your home game round and you keep winning there a little and play for pennies and enjoy it, that's the perfect thing to stick to. And yeah, in poker it took me that it's really like bringing more things together than that. I guess my yeah, I mean it's like physics and not how you say it, like my what I'm good at is just fits way better to poker than to sports. So it's like there I had a chance to really succeed a little more. But yeah, I think that all fits a little together.
Yeah, yeah, I think it fits in nicely to your competitive nature and playing board games with your brother. Sports like one of the best things we can do when we're younger to compete. And like you said before, you like to win. I'm curious to come back at some point to understanding how you deal with losses, because often I find people who are highly competitive have struggles with losses and yeah, basically the kind of conflict of not winning. It doesn't seem like that holds true for you, but we'll explore that a little bit later. But yeah, it seems like your competitive nature has kind of taken you down different paths from board games to sports, now to poker, which is probably the ultimate fit for your personality and your goals. So yeah, very interesting.
This podcast is brought to you by Poker Ambition, where me and Adam have created our coaching program, The Mechanics of Poker. After having reached high stakes poker ourselves, we tested out this philosophy on our CFP students, which saw them rise through the ranks and double their win rate. We then took the best knowledge of that CFP program and turned it into the mechanics of poker, so you can have that high quality content without the long-term commitment and often hefty price that comes with a CFP program. Now I will be teaching you the technical side of how poker really works, how to think about the game and how to consistently get better. And Adam focuses on the mindset and performance skills you need to know in order to convert all that technical poker knowledge into more consistent profits at the table. Now, this program is high level. It's made for professional poker players who have the ambition to break free from mid stakes and move up to high stakes poker. So if you're ambitious about your poker goals, go over to pokerambition.com for more information. And there you can also find a free 1-hour demo of everything that is inside the program. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out. But without further ado, let's get back to more goodness in this episode.
Rene, I know you've been taking some notes there. I think you want to dive in with any questions that we've been talking about.
It was funny that you actually said, I don't want to ask you in terms of losing, because like, yeah, it's very clear you like to win and you try to stay sort of in your comfort zone, which is in line with your values, right? Because you don't need necessarily a very big inspiration. You don't have the very big aspirations. You don't need 20 million to live the life that you want to live, for example. Is there something inside of you beyond that indeed, like if you really push for it, that you might not succeed? Does that idea maybe scare you, and that's why you prefer to just stay a bit more in your comfort zone and just crush the people that you were going to crush?
Not really. I think like one thing I'm good at is just reframing things. So it's like if I can find a way to take it as a success, it will be fine, right? So it's like that. Maybe like in table tennis, for example, like if we were like I mean, sometimes we were like playing a league higher or two, just like after a nice year of success, and then we just lost every match there. Then okay, maybe you look a little more at your solo statistics, right? And then you have something there for it. Maybe then there's other parts where you are somewhat successful or can make it a success in a way in your mind. I remember the worst time of my life clearly that I had. that was when I had nothing else and was just pretty much taking my joy or whatever is happening out of poker. That was when I was injured and couldn't do any sports. So I had a knee surgery, and it was November, and I was already living in Brighton, and I was there just like for flying there and playing for three weeks straight, just like grinding it out every day. And that came together with like there wouldn't be a problem if things are going well. But this was the only thing I could take like my not energy from, but like really what gives me something there. Um, and then I was grinding every day, and I just kept losing. It was like one of my worst months, even though I put all the effort in. I think it was just a downer, and I think it was all fine. But then I felt so miserable because it was just like I couldn't go out, and like it could be a success just to go out and do sports, right? Whatever happens there, or I don't know what else. Like it's yeah, anything could be something, and there it was yeah, nothing. I was like I mean, we didn't connect too well there. We tried in the beginning, but somehow didn't manage to do so in Brighton. So it was pretty much me being there. I don't know whether some of the flatmates were there as well. And I felt so miserable. And this is something I learned as well. I just like need multiple options that make me happy in a way, and I can't rely on the variance of poker. It's like not just a one thing. Where like whether it's a relationship that is great, or is it like some kind of sports where you in the beginning it was like sports was going well or sports was going bad, and then uni was going well, or just like something that you can like look at and be happy about. That was always wanted to have that, and when that is missing, that made me feel miserable in a way.
Yeah, it's like if you're too dependent on poker for your all-around self-esteem or how you feel about yourself or just feeling good, and when everything is dependent on poker, then when it doesn't go that well, it hurts you a lot. Whereas if you have other things going on, it's like, oh yeah, poker didn't go so well, but now I'm gonna go have fun with my
Yeah.
friends or in my relationships, or I go to play this sport, and it's fine. I also hear, I don't know if you've actively practiced sort of mindfulness, or if you read it. I hear a lot of sort of mindfulness principles, also some stoic principles coming back in your stories. Also like this, basically I wrote down success is already inside of you. Basically, you don't need to prove it or go challenge certain people. You know that if you now want to feel successful or good about yourself, you can try, you can find a reason why you're already successful. You can find a reason why you're already happy with yourself. And I think a lot of people, they kind of crave that feeling, right? And they think it's somewhere along the horizon. Oh, if I achieve this, or if I achieve that, then I will feel that way. But I think what you do very well is you're indeed, your values. You're very much in line with your values. You don't let other people kind of judge you on your values and then doubt your values, right? I can understand that compared to all the people you were hanging out with, they really liked that traveling, right? They would go to a restaurant and you were the only one who felt a bit awkward paying $200 for a steak, right? That would be a situation. For example, if you put me in a situation, I would probably kind of go with the group, right? And kind of put my values on the side, because that's kind of, I guess I find it then more important to fit in than to really stay true to myself. So I think that's something that you do very well as well. Uh, this was just my my conclusion so far from what I'm hearing of you. I don't know if is this conscious or is this this is
I'm
just you.
definitely joining that group as well. It's just like it's not what I need. Like I want to, like, for example, on Friday we go to a very very special 3-star restaurant here that I'm very much looking forward to with a great group. But I want this to be a special thing. I want to still know what is normal to people. Like what is the normal? Where like I mean it's lots of people where I think I always found that weird. It's true in a way, but like other poker players in those interviews, they talk a lot about like their friends or good friend here and there, talking about all their poker players. Yes, I'm friends with most of the German poker players, but I'm probably better friends with like lots of like the people I know from my hometown that I'm still, those are my best buddies. And I feel like those people who don't have those normal people around them, and like their only base or like their friends is just all from that poker bubble in a way, that changes you in a way, which, I mean, it's fine, it's just different, right? Where for me it was always important, if I'm so connected to home and I want to still stay in touch with those people and meet on a very regular basis, it's like it would be very, very weird, right? That like, I mean, I think I mean, stuff like, I could make like a gazillion stories now, but that's like that, I think that's the main thing.
Again, like I said, something stoic coming back, that you shouldn't, even though you shouldn't overly spoil yourself, for example, with 3-star dinners, because else it doesn't feel special
Yeah.
anymore, right? It's like the standard. If you just do it all the time, then it's like, yeah, it's no longer special. So you try to not do things too much, even though you could, to keep them special
You know
in a way,
what is fun, because
right?
it's one of the special things right now. What we started, my wife and I, we started doing that during Corona. It's like, after ordering food so often, just like really taking time and cooking something nice. It was like we made like a journey through the world, and had like a cooking date night, like every Friday. And we actually, I put into, I taught her lots of randomizing. So whenever we are unsure, she's ready to randomize stuff. That's pretty great. So vacations are pretty randomized sometimes, and that is where we had a box and we put like names of countries in there, just like we were just like brainstorming. And every Friday we just, or like the week before, someone is responsible, we draw like one thing, and then it's like, for example, Brazil, and then you have to do something fancy, pretty much referring to that country. We're like, I mean, I think that's like the most normal thing in the world, to be there together in the kitchen, cook something, and then have a nice dinner. But like, that turned out to be something so special, really taking the time, instead of, yeah, let's order Indian food tonight, let's order Thai tonight, let's order this tonight, because I don't know whether it's too lazy or just like that. We're like, things can change, where all of a sudden the easy, normal stuff gets the special things again.
Yes, I definitely agree. A lot of wisdom in there. I want to quickly go back to the time where you were playing the high rollers and playing live. Um, you referred to, when you were just playing your Zoom grind, that you always had the ability, even though it didn't go so well for a short period, you could always zoom out and see that nice big graph. Was that something that you had trouble with in tournaments?
Absolutely.
To keep you sane, basically?
Absolutely. Like, always that, yes, I think I am good, and like, the success of certain buddies gives me the proof in a way, because I think I'm doing, like, I mean, we are playing same strategies, if not a little deeper. I'm clearly making better decisions. And then, yes, and then it's, in the end, it's about two flips. But saying that over and over again after every trip, even though it's just like 7 tournaments or so, gets annoying. And then there's nothing that I can rely on, right? Let's say I move up to 500, and I have in my back, I have a nice little 200k hands graph with beating Zoom 200 with 7 BB per 100. I mean, nothing can happen to me, right? It's like, really that, yeah, I can always go back to that, and know, like, okay, it's probably not a big deal. But then, never, like, until a point, never made any money in tournament poker, even though everyone is telling me, hey, no, it's all great you're doing, just wait for it. It's like, it's annoying, because it's not natural to me. Like, I'm that, yeah, that I need that correlation between good playing and getting a success out of it. Or it's just, I don't know whether I could get used to it if I started with that. I can see myself, if I enjoyed that a little more, to just like grind the daily tournaments, smaller fields then, and like have that kind of Zoom 200 graph then as well. Just on that level, where if you only show up for the series, then play the high events, sure, I can evaluate plays that people make and say, like, okay, we have a clear mistake here, he's blowing up here, this is all stuff that I'm not doing, so I need to be a favorite over them. But then it's like, still, okay, we play a freaking scoop main event with 1,000 people, am I going to win it or not? It's probably a lottery, right? In a way. So it's just like very, very easy to run bad there for a while. And by never putting the sample in, which is just not possible live, yeah, I still think I never, like, people think of me that I'm, or I mean, some live players think that I'm a bad main event player, right? I never had any score in any kind of big field, right? Yes, I won some 40 player sit and goes, which doesn't mean anything. I personally think I'm a great main event player. Just like, taking so many spots where I win 300 big blinds where others win 100. I guess Rene definitely knows what I'm talking about there.
Of course, if you have a 6, you need to stack the 5.
That's it, right? So yeah, and then like I'm looking over the shoulders of buddies like playing that stuff online. I'm like, how can you not go all in? Yeah, but I'm only betting that big because why should he call me? And like, yeah, have you ever been bluffing that spot? No. Good point. And they're like, okay, you go all in, get called by crazy shit, all you just like won 3 times the amount. It's like, okay, like stuff like that where I think what is my best, I think is like a 41st place in something where, I don't know, other buddies have like EPT title here, final table left and right. And yeah, I actually, what is fun, I think I'm actually pretty good, but everyone says that in evaluating good and bad run. So it's really that I think I have one big upside where I ran as hot as no one else in his career, and that is the how it looked like when play is streamed. So whenever I was sitting on a streamed final table or like anything streamed, I look like a freaking genius. It's like every bluff catch I made there lifetime was good, and every fancy too thin value bet or random overbet exploitative got called. It's like really that. And the other part is, okay, if I got it in, I lost. And it's like, okay, out again with a big flip or getting sucked out. And we're like, it's like always looking great on stream where I think like people watching that had a very, very high opinion of me, where obviously I'm blowing up left and right on outer tables as well. And I would on the stream as well, but it's like, that is just the bad or good run. Where actually, if you like the bad run side, I think is really that making money myself with tournaments never worked out too well because I was very, very conscious and planned with my investments there as well. If you look through the hand and MOPP I have and evaluate the toughness of the tournaments, I always won the toughest tournaments, which at the same time means I didn't have a big piece, right? So it's like, for example, Poker Masters, everyone was talking about that, was 36 players, I guess, throughout the series, and like 2 semi-fish that are not too bad, like yeah, don't want to call out names, but it was like that, like some big whales were not coming, and it was really that, yes, it was Ray Cree, that makes it good, but it was a fest of regulars, that's it. So I'm as I am, just like had a very, very small piece. What no one sees is like, so yeah, I mean, you can guess that's not the most money I made there, but the most prestige in a way. And then the next week, I just binked a $500 W Coupe tournament, which no one sees in this world, for pretty much the same amount that I won in Poker Masters, where it's like, it's just, where like I obviously just play on, I maybe had a 5% swap with a buddy that was cheering me on, but it's like stuff like that. And this is something just to evaluate that, where and you could do that same for other players, where Fedor, I think, or other of the heaters like Justin Bonamo, maybe Dan Coleman, it was not them having that heater that they win everything, but it's like really that they win everything after another. So every time you're overconfident slightly and willing to invest more to then win again is just like the biggest heater of all times, right? It's like so easy to lose stuff back. But if you have that like 3-4 in a row and you feel invincible, then this is where the real heater is in a way. So there's like fun as well in a way to look at.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that bink something that had the same mentality. Okay, now I'm going to take a very big piece of myself. They bricked the next 10 tournaments and we don't hear of them anymore, right? That's always the catch with these kind of stories.
What you were looking at always Sunday night in the cash game table, someone just getting, I don't know, 5th in the Sunday Million, feeling like being the best poker player in the world, just getting unlucky to only finish 5th. NL 10K is a nice limit to start trying again. So yeah.
Yes. It's quite interesting, right? For example, if I go to your Wikipedia page, it indeed says like Steffen Sontheimer won 3.6 million, 10 million lifetime earnings. In general, I think in tournament world, they have like this big braggy stars. Wow, 20 million lifetime earnings. I'm like, yeah, okay, earnings.
Yeah.
Where's the profit, right? And indeed, like you don't know in the world. I remember, I think I heard a podcast with Fedor as well, where he was talking about that he had some trouble he felt like he couldn't complain because the outside world thought he had the best year ever. But in buying pieces, how much pieces he had in his winnings, he actually ended up down, which is really weird because then you cannot complain to the world because the world thinks, what are you complaining about? You pinked all this tournament. How does that feel weird in a way when people say like, oh, wow, yeah, you won the 3.6 million? Is it like, yeah, not really actually?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
I mean, it's like I was whining a little on Twitter that one year after the 1,000,001 drop, and then there was like big headlines in like the media, a German pro losing 2.1 million in Vegas. We're like, yes, I don't know whether that maybe 1.8. I don't know, like one part with the 1 million tournament. We're like, you can guess, I didn't have the biggest piece of myself in that one. But yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. It's again, for some people that are important to you, you can take some time and explain it, and for some others, it's just what it is, right? If someone puts my name into Google and thinks I'm like I have 14, 13 or something million, okay, let him think that. It's okay. I don't care.
Going back to, I've actually thought it was quite. If I thought it made a lot of sense that in tournaments, you might not feel as confident in the long run than in cash games, right? If you would have grinded indeed your way up in tournaments, you built a certain identity for yourself. Like, I am a tournament crusher. And then no matter if a downswing hits, you have something to fall back on. No, crushing tournaments, that's what I do. Whereas if you did not put in that sample those years before, like you did in cash, then if, things don't go that well, even though rationally speaking, you make better plays and you play the same strategies as your buddies around you are winning and you get confirmation. Still inside of you, your identity is not I
Yeah.
crush tournaments. It's just not possible. And maybe this is also, some of your strengths were indeed that you have a lot of self-awareness, you control your ego well, you're good in game selection, except for that tournament that you actually ended up pinking, which, that helped you well in that case. But in a way, also this self-awareness and not having that big ego and going after that big win also holded you back a little bit at this point, I guess.
Sorry, say it again. I just didn't get it.
So normally your self-awareness and the fact that you control your ego well helps you in your career, right? You play it safe. Whereas in tournaments, maybe if other people around me would say, wow, you're so good, you might take a little bit of a more aggressive shot. You might ride that ego a little bit more. So in a way that you're being a bit risk averse in that area kind of holded you back.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that I need to figure, like, that is important for me always to figure things out by myself. What we said is like totally true. Like you feel like, okay, I'm a cash game player there. I went through those downswings that it's mainly the experience missing as well. Like if I went through that downswing like 3 years before and 2 years before as well, and then like you have that positive attitude about that. And there I really always had that. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's the life component. Maybe some people see something. We're like, okay, by talking honestly with Fedor, he's like, no, not a shit, right? It's like, don't worry about it. But still, like all that confirmation, it's different. Outside confirmation is different than when you are 100% convinced yourself. So it's like what really helps me there is to really evaluate what, like, can you name it what you do better than others? That's like, and this is what I get, like really teaming up there, watching others play and like just seeing them making random or definitely bad moves where like I just know potentially the theory behind it better. I know other things maybe better. And then that's like, okay, he's winning. I clearly play a better strategy. So it's like just a logical thing that should work out, but you never know, right? And then it's like, you have that kind of bullshit talk about, okay, but he's so good exploitative, where like everyone who says that I'm like not 100% sure of, where like, yes, it's definitely a plus that you know all the players, right? Those people grinding their hearts out, let's shout out to Pats, like who is sharing everything on Twitter and Instagram maybe like every single day against those players that show up. I feel it now. I just playing a little challenge, some Zoom 200 again, whatever is possible here from Germany. You know how people play if you play them every freaking day, right? And if you are somewhat smarter or one level higher sometimes, you will figure more out about them than the other way around. So it's just that gives you something where like, yes, if someone is going there to an EPT main event and I just see like, okay, I have 2 Russians, 2 Spaniards and 1 French guy there, and Rainer Kempe is going there and knows like, yeah, this guy is always doing this guy is always doing this. I played them in all the 1Ks in my life before. obviously that's a big advantage, right? So it's like
Yeah.
that's that kind of stuff where I always was a little self-critical or not 100% sure, and definitely didn't let like the like good words from others affect my decisions there too much, to like I was never investing too much then.
I think there's a very big difference between, indeed, like rationally speaking, knowing everything, but like in your
Yeah.
gut, that intuition about how the pools usually play in a certain spot, how this guy will approach his spot. You're just rationalizing it away with logic, but it doesn't feel the same, as
Exactly.
having that. I know I played with this guy over and over. I'm 100% sure. I'm gonna make this explode.
And just like I played, I don't know, a couple of 10,000 hands the last week and have exactly that feeling. I go into the Zoom 200 pool and feel like, yeah, most of those recs, and I have seen most of those names 5 years ago already. They didn't change their play style too much, probably. So they will be value heavy, but always with a big if. Like they will be value heavy in big spots always. And now I'm looking at it like, he has it. I'm not calling a single catcher here, right? It's like no doubt at all, right? It's just like that switch of things, that always lots of doubts in my head, in the whole tournament world, definitely.
How do you do that? Because you go on Twitch, you play, people see you playing. You, from what I can tell, are quite transparent in terms of you literally say what you're thinking. I have a feeling you don't hold much information back. And you, for example, when I Twitch, I get quite paranoid in sharing exactly what I think, especially when it comes down to read some pools, read some players, etc., etc. How do you do that? Like, you make a very exploitive fault and just be like, yeah, he doesn't bluff here, knowing that he's gonna see that. Doesn't that freak you out a
No,
little
it doesn't
bit?
hurt me at all. It's like really that. It's like I love making fun of those players as well. So it's like really that maybe I give up a little dollar EV here for having some fun EV, because it's just, I mean, if someone, especially when I've seen a name 5 years ago already, and he's still playing that same style on 200, he won't change. It's like always, you are thinking then probably in a way as if you were watching yourself, and you can make all those conclusions what that means. If someone is playing 21-17, 6% 3-bet, and then $1 after bet river on the showdown of like 72, no, he doesn't know that bluffing is a thing in poker, right? It's like he won't see that, oh, next time I bluff him. Like, no, it's like not, you can't, like, I can watch Cristiano Ronaldo make a nice free kick and how he did it, but I won't, like, no, it's not in me. I just can't, unfortunately, right? So it's like that in a way. Obviously, you're giving away something to smart players, right? But against them, you are anyways like trying to like, you're not on the most exploitative level. You both try to like not make mistakes in a way. So
yeah, so basically you're not gonna make as big exploits on higher stakes than
I'm
on
not
lower
streaming
stakes.
5K.
So
Definitely
basically,
not.
no, that was actually my follow-up question. Would it be
Yes,
different than
and
if you
even on
stream high
200,
stakes? But
sometimes I try to make a good job of not showing that. But if I make ridiculous folds, I mean, I did lots of calls that I would fold off stream.
yeah, no, I'm guilty of that
We're
as
like,
well.
and I get the message from Dudi, for example. Oh, you made that just for the stream. We're like folding all day long, and I'm like, and I'm in stream. Yeah, it's like close. The read is not strong enough. I think we still have to call that, even though he's still like. And I'm like, yes, kind of finding an explanation around it that like I bring over to the audience that I know he has it, but no way I'm folding that. Where in real life, like sometimes I'm doing that, just like pulling the table away, click on the fold button and not talk about it anymore. And then like sometimes I'm just like, I mean, I'm not making things where I'm 100% sure. Then I'm doing it, right? And I don't care. But if it's like, yes, he has like, I mean, I remember one hand. What was it? Someone is like big blind 3-betting and he has like his 6-7% there against the button, something like that. We get a 10 high board. He c-bets
and he pots it.
Sorry? No, that would be good. But I have jacks. He c-bets like half pot. 10-7-3, turn is a 4, and then he check jams. Where like I'm saying that yes, he can include ace 10 as a value hand in there, but in real life, now I'm folding my jacks there. Just like, I mean, I told like he has the kings without the flush draw. He did have the kings without the flush draw. It's so nice that you can call out the hands all the time. But like stuff like that, where like, yes, it's like not 100% sure, but yeah. But I guess that's like what you get used to when streaming, and it's really like to make the toughest or craziest things. It's just
it's something that before you turn on go live, you already accept that something like this is going to happen. But it's really weird. Like I would have made a call just because I don't want to explain exactly how I think about the spot. I'm just going to call because I don't have a better argument. I cannot explain a better argument for folding than the one that I don't want to explain.
It's not the worst thing in the world to tell everyone, yeah, it's totally standard. You got to bet call that here because, yeah, I mean, it's fine. And this is why you are streaming 500. I can't even see the lobby, unfortunately. So I can afford the 200 to give up. It's not like you're giving like $200 EV up there or like whatever the bet is, like 100.
No, yeah. And I mean, for example, I do sometimes stream 3-handed 2K, for example, 4-handed 2K. And there it's like, but the players that I then play against, I'm not going to do any. It's exactly what you said. I'm not going to radically, like they're not very much over bluffing, very much under bluffing. They're going to be closer to GTO. So I'm going to be closer to GTO.
Call loses 2 BB then and not like 20. So it's like, okay.
Exactly. So it feels a little bit, it feels a little bit better. One point that I wrote down was that you mentioned when you were playing these live events that you were swapping and buying action in other players, where your normal grind, playing it safe, having a lot of control, comes back. How was that when you were suddenly buying pieces everywhere and people were going on huge downswings and it was not in your control anymore, basically? Normally you would maybe say, oh, I lost quite a lot, maybe take a step back. But no, they keep on firing. You have percentages. Let's go.
I never bought pieces because I can't take it. It's like, I'm not a tournament player. I cannot evaluate that. If someone tells me, yeah, let's that whole Vegas schedule, that markup, I cannot evaluate it. Just like it's not. So everything I invest in is just the tournaments I play myself. So I have kind of a rating. I know that's like those short, a few player fields, and that's it, right? So and I play against them myself, and I can like guess more or less how ROIs look like. So it's mainly just swapping to just increase your overall exposure a little on the tournament when you want to have that. And that's about it. I was never that guy like, let's go, you play the main event, you play the main event, I buy 50, like not at all. Like just because I'm not a tournament player. It's exactly.
So it's purely you're like, okay, I cannot evaluate the EV of my investment, so I don't make it.
Like, or is this the nittiness, right? Where like I'm probably it's plus EV, but I don't know for sure, and I need to know for sure.
That's indeed very interesting, because I can imagine that if again, you're in that circle, people are winning left and right, and you have the access to buy action of them, as a direct friend, first access maybe. I think it's.
We were swapping, right? It's like that. I'm not. It's not like I had more monies than other. That's mainly the case when you start buying the action. We're like, yes, if like I'm not buying the action, it's like, okay, Fedor is buying the action, or whoever is behind is buying the action. So it's like I'm not. Yeah, you get it sold anyways. If someone has like struggles to get it sold, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it's like, and it's the same tournament I play. That was my rule, just tournaments I play, and then I take another piece. Like that's not the problem. But yeah. Was never a big investor.
All right. Well, you've had quite a story, quite the ride, Mr. Go0se.core. If you reflecting on it, like yeah, I mean it's exactly what you said, right? It was in line with your goals. It helped you here and there. It maybe stopped you here and there, but in the end, you're happy with your choices and where you are now. So you get the stamp succeeded in poker.
That worked out quite fine.
If you look back at your whole career, what is like the most important thing that you learned throughout throughout everything that you've experienced?
Oh, that's a very, very tough question. I mean, pretty much those life values, knowing what you want in life. That's like, I guess, the biggest success you can have. That it's like, I mean, I still feel pretty young with 31. I hope there's lots of life ahead, and like having a rough idea how you want to live those next, I don't know, 50 good years, and maybe some more that are not too great. Let's see. Is pretty nice, instead of like being caught somewhere, like searching for what you want to do, like being, I mean, how much time do we have the last 10 years thinking about that stuff? For example, people being
Hmm.
caught in uni and then in a job and like having their daily life, it takes them like way more years, just to like think stuff like that through and like build that. And it's not only thinking it through once and then just knowing, it's that repetition of like really just like getting that, yeah, just like just getting those feelings that this is right what you think, and like then having the bigger picture. I think this is the clear thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in I see this a lot in poker because of how fast we can make progress in our careers. You kind of, everyone hits like an early midlife crisis, which normally in normal career paths people hit when they're like 50s. We hit it at like in our 30s, which is a huge a huge edge compared to the rest of the world, right? Because now you can, based on everything that you learned so fast, learned about yourself, you can live the majority of your life in line with those values, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's, I don't know, it's so, uh, it's like those talks, like when I sit there with my wife and we talk about the future and what our plans are. I would like to see those kind of talks from other people, right? Where like, I think I kind of like put her a little in my direction, and she took me a little in her direction. I mean, she's not a poker player, so um, and and yeah, I think this has to look very, very different, just like for the vast majority of people, just like planning their future, because there's no room for planning, no, way less options. They are stuck in something, and this is just yeah, so much freedom that I'm super happy with, and super, super thankful for.
I think you do need to reach a certain point in your career because, if we would have had this conversation 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or if you would have this conversation with me, very focused on achieving a certain amount of success, or you want to reach certain goals. And it's only after you reach that you feel like you have the time to reflect.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we travel back in time like 5 years, it's, you get like totally different answers to everything. Just like then, what was it? Start of 2017. Oh, I would still be whining about the downswing end of 2016. I would still praise the 5K Steffen Go0se and stars. And I would hope like that 2017 things will have finally to change, because how bad can you run, or for how long can you run bad in live poker? And then we turn out that 2017 will be a great year. So yeah, I hope for you too.
Adam, would you like to share your thoughts on this, on the biggest lesson that he learned?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm getting a lot of lessons that seem very powerful from you. The self-awareness is just a big trend line throughout this conversation. And another thing that was really interesting is your kind of ability to reframe. It's really, I think me and Rene both came into this conversation trying to pick some obstacles from you, some challenges that you faced. But that's hard for you to even answer because you instantly reframe it as a positive. So we can't even hit an obstacle because your mind's already reframed that as a win
Yeah.
and a positive thing, which is an amazing superpower, because life's not really obstacles. It's like neutral situations that we frame as an obstacle, which then needs to be solved. You skip that phase and you instantly, or you try to reframe situations as a positive, which I think is an amazing skill set. And it's amazing for people listening to think about how they can reframe their situations in a more positive way. We have so much leeway to do that. We can choose different angles. And if we, like you said, with your poker results, you'd often zoom out and look at your big graph. We always have the ability to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. So yeah, I'm getting this kind of big picture perspective, self-awareness, the ability to reframe, which I would call perspective, the perspective skill sets. And yeah, really, really interesting to hear how you've been able to use those to from my perspective, have less challenges or less big obstacles that other players would normally have. Normally, we have a bit of a train wreck scenario where it's ups and downs and backs and forths. You've navigated the highs and lows of the poker world smoother than most people, and I think it's a testament to those skills you've developed. So, yeah, I'm just going to fire some quick fire questions which I've had on my mind going into this conversation. Then, Rene, I'm guessing you've got some random questions as well. So, first of all, when you are your best, what does that look like? You could apply it to your daily habits, or when you're at your best self, what does that generally look like for you?
That's interesting. How it looks like. Probably sitting there actually in not the most relaxed posture. And it's like I have that thing, like no other things in mind. That's like something that's usually holding me back. And what I think and give it is as advice for lots of others as well is that that talking about what you're doing helps a lot. Just like to put like to think thoughts to the end. I'm not necessarily talking while playing. That can happen just inside your head as well. But really having that ability of free mind to really think things to the end. Where like I feel that when I'm not like in the like not performing the best and then review it and like what have I thought here, or just like click on something and have that 1 second later that maybe that was not the best. And this is sometimes I feel like yesterday, for example, I recorded a video for Pokercode, just a live play, and there I just felt it before. I want to talk about what I'm doing here right now, right? It was like one where I was talking about exploits. Now I have some experience with the players I played in the last week, and now I can finally say something what I think about them, and I'm happy to do so. We're like, hey, I play this table, and I want to articulate where my EV is coming from. Right? It's like I want to again in a hand, for example, I try to zoom out. What is like that from just a theory perspective? What is the spot? Okay, I have a pure bluff catcher with those two cards mean this, and this is the player type I'm facing. So whatever is my absolute hand strength, it ends up being a fold, probably, right? I have this and that, and this is where my EV comes from. We're like, hey, but I remember a hand from yesterday as well. We're like, hey, I turn a free king straight in a 3-bet pot. I'm like, yes, that's a high frequency check here to protect my range. I know this guy is never bluffing. So what is the exploit here? I get the money from just like getting money from his draws and his weaker value hand. So I'm just splashing it through myself. We're like just really articulating that makes it sound so easy at the same time, which that's why lots of people I guess love the YouTube videos or the stream to just like present it in an easy way that everything makes sense, but it helps yourself the most actually. And this is maybe a good description that really I have the time and freedom in my brain to really have that talk in there if I'm not speaking it out loud.
Yeah. Is there anything you do on a daily, weekly basis to provide that space for yourself so you can consistently show up as that version of yourself?
I mean, right now, not at all, because since June, I cannot grind from Germany. That's the big problem. So, like, and now for Zoom 200, I don't introduce like big routines. But usually, when I play real sessions, that's the first thing that no session gets started before the last one is reviewed. That's just like, even if it's just a short thing that helps poker wise to get things that might still be stuck there from the past. And even if it's just like 3 lost flips, that helps me to get them out there. And then you're free. We're like, I mean, one basic rule that I'm not following up with, but helps me a lot when I do so, is just the very, very basic rule of life that everything you can do in less than 5 minutes, do it now. And we're like, that's a pretty good thing. We're like, before our call here, I actually needed to make appointments with a physiotherapist. This is one call, but this is something that is in the back of my mind for now 3 days, or it's not, right? So I did it at like, we met at 10, so I did it at like 9:45. I still called there and just get it done. Like just those things, trying to do that before a session where, as I said, it's easy to say right now I'm not doing that at all because I chill, play a little Zoom 200, do a little coaching, do something here, and it's like it's not really. I don't need to perform on the highest level right now. But this is something that maybe in the future, when I grind a little more again from when I'm in Vienna or so, I try to have those habits for sure.
Yeah, awesome. So on your poker journey, what have been some of the more powerful character traits you've had to develop? It feels like from the outside, you going into poker, you already had a quite good, clear values that you understood. You were very, very competitive going into poker. What did you have to learn on the poker journey that you maybe weren't good at originally, or was like a new skill set that you had to learn the hard way or the fast way during your poker career? Does anything come to mind?
Two things, yeah. So one thing that it helped me a lot with is, I mean, mainly just through the success, I guess, but like self-esteem. I was one. I mean, you can imagine. I told you before from like sports that I was always one of the small guys. Like growing up to a man is like one of the latest. I guess everyone has had those in their youth around them as well. Where like that like puts you into that position of like getting kind of a shy person, maybe a little, of like being a little not sure about things. And I'm definitely that, where like I remember that was interesting when my wife at one day told me, it's like, it's insane when I hear you talk with like poker people, you're just like a different person, because that's just like different conversations where like kind of I'm the boss in a way, where like there's nothing you can't shake me off with like poker or anything, right? I guess Rene and I, we can talk on like a high level about all kinds of strategy, but it's like there won't be anything new. There will be interesting things, but like it's like, yes, it's like I feel so much confidence in something that I obviously do not have in any other part of life. I don't have another part of life that I studied as much as I studied poker, so it's just a natural thing. And the other thing is that kind of accepting that people are very different. It's like I gave, actually, that was the most interesting interview I ever gave to someone from the seventh grade from my hometown school, because it was so easy, childish questions. And really thinking about them on a deeper level was very interesting. And it was like one of the questions was, what do I need to be good at to make it to the point where you are? And there I was really thinking, he was more talking about school subjects, but it's more like really that thinking, okay, who is there in the high roller world? And we have very, very different people. I know some of the German crew, I mean, they struggle adding 17 and 28. Right? It's like not the analytical math type of people who just don't need a second for that. It's like really, it's insane how bad you can be with numbers and still succeed in poker. Some others are like very, very talented in a communicative way, just like making friends with people, getting in the right circles, maybe even live game selection in a way, getting into nice cash games or something on the side. Like for me, that would be acting. Some, you obviously have those type of super geeks, kind of, you could, they, if they ended up like being a math student, they will do their professor or something and then end up in like just like geeking in another area that you can really dive deep into. And then you have like kind of those all rounders. I don't know how to describe. I have Reiner in mind right now, right? Not a math talent, not like, I don't know, but like he's kind of like out of the streets, kind of, right? Like just like knowing how things are working. And like so different characters. And before that, I was like more centered around my ideas, like, okay, you need to maximize EV, this is the strategy, this is what you need to do, and this is the only way how it works. So really that more open-mindedness regarding how things can work, and that different perspectives can be totally fine. Where now I experience that a lot when I do coachings with especially people that got coached from other players before. Like really, yeah, I have one in mind that just had someone who was working a lot with mass data analysis, and like that coaching must have been like programming a bot in a way. It's like, yeah, there you just always bet 30% because this is what works. Instead of, right, I try to make people understand with analogies and nice and easy to understand images, where like he was just like, he could probably put it on paper what his strategy is without telling him why, or couldn't even explain it, right? It's like, and obviously those people can be very successful in poker too. And this is just like being open-minded regarding that. That was, I guess, the second big thing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think poker makes you realize that people are very different and there's no like kind of right or wrong way. And like we said earlier in the conversation, we're all trying to get to different outcomes. So obviously different personality types and different ways of doing things are going to get us to different outcomes. Yeah, I think it's always good to reflect that maybe our way isn't not only the only way, but it might not be like just the best way. There's so many different ways to go about getting to an outcome, even with poker and like very finite solutions in a way. There's so many different ways you can play spots and get a certain outcome. So yeah, I think it's really it's a lesson in different personality types. And I know myself, like I used to always struggle with people who weren't logical enough. If someone was too emotional, I used to be like, all right, just stop the emotions. Let's get to logic. And I used to try to think that they were wrong and I was right. And I had to kind of teach them how to think logically. And then now as I understand people more, I'm like, that was just me not listening. I just didn't understand how to hold space for an emotion. So I would just try to reframe the situation that they're wrong and I'm right. Yeah, I think poker has got so many personalities, from GTO people to field people, but it's different types of people who see the world differently. I think that it's a great lesson to accept that people are different. I think once you do get to that point, you realize you can learn so much from, often people are very different. Often you can learn more from those people. In the past few years, I've learned a lot more from people who are very different to me. Whereas maybe early in my life, I might maybe channeled myself towards people who are very similar and just learn from peer groups. But recently I've learned a lot more from people who are different to me because they stress my ideas and they often tell me how silly I am, how wrong I am. But that gets me to reflect on where I am. And yeah, it's a more balanced
Yeah,
perspective at the
it's
end
like,
of it. So just
yes,
one quick,
you,
sorry.
sorry, you go, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, me and Rene, before we got on the conversation, we both noted separately that you're very good at asking questions. It seems like you're very good at asking yourself questions and reflecting. Has that always been something that you would say you were good at? Or have you been able to fine tune that skill set of maybe going internal to ask questions or even seeking questions outside? Has that been something that you've been able to fine tune?
um I think that was somehow just there, or I don't know where it comes from. It's like really that analytical way. I always did like lots of teaching, like even that guy who is like, where I thought about how can you explain things, and like just being that guy who helped others in like seventh grade with math, like talking about that, and this is something that I guess teaches that skill a little, because for me it's just like everyone knows all that stuff. It's insane. You can bring me your worst student, and I try, like, it's just whatever your brain is thinking through is just triggered by the right questions you ask. And sometimes the questions are just very, very easy. You just need to ask them. We're like, I remember now math back in school where like you have a little task where like a story is told and then you need to find something out, like I don't know, Timmy meets Adam and they do this and that with that, and like there's not like the clearest question of all times and you need to figure it out yourself, where some people sit in front of that and like, I have no clue what I should do, right? Because it's not the framework. It's not like there's just a math equation and they need to solve it. There are some people who can do that, but this is always that, yeah, just ask the questions. And this is again bring back to just speaking it out loud, like what are you thinking about now? It's really so helpful. And then I see it like, yeah, we can talk about that in any poker spot, like, oh, I have no clue what flop sizing to use here. Yes, let's think about it. What makes sense? Does a small sizing make sense? What do you hurt in villain's range using that? Well, does a big sizing make sense? What is like the problem here and there? And then all of a sudden you ask just like those super general questions, and then you get the Pio answer from a more or less random student without ever looking at Pio, because it's like, yes, it's like you have it in you. And yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah, awesome. So it sounds like a little bit of an inbuilt talent to always be asking questions, but it sounds like you've fine-tuned that skill set throughout your life, from helping people with maths now to coaching poker. And yeah, I think it's a really powerful life lesson for all of us to always stop and go, wait, what questions can I be asking here? And like you said, you can get like a JTO PIO solution from someone who has never seen a solver if you probe the right questions. And yeah, I think it's good to look at our lives and go, what questions could I be asking? How could I direct myself and my life better by asking questions? Is there any questions you ask yourself regularly? I've got one, a question I ask myself every week, every other week is, what would this look like if it was easy? What would this look like if it was easy? I'm generally trying to solve my life problems or coordinate my week. And I always go, what would it look like if it was easy? And that gives me a framing of, okay, just do these things, and I simplify. So any questions you use regularly that are powerful for you?
Not consciously, like it's interesting to think about, but no, I've nothing consciously. It's more like the um more like the outlook to the future. What will the future bring? Like especially like now with the things in private life that are going on that I'm thinking about. And with the situation with poker, it's just like more that kind of questions, but nothing like using questions as a tool to really think something through. Couldn't think of anything, no. But cool to we'll think about it now.
Yeah. Sounds like you're very adaptive with your questions, so you use them on the fly as they come up. So that's a good tool.
Yeah.
All right, Rene, any quick fire questions or any way you want to steer the conversation with any future
No,
questions?
I think Steffen, because he knows himself and he's very clear on where he wants to go, and then basically the maybe unconscious next question is, okay, then what do I have to do on a daily basis? Okay, I go do it. Basically, does that sound about right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that little challenge I'm having, right? And I started 2nd of January playing Zoom 200 again, and I think I run super bad so far, but it feels just not okay. And it's not okay either to just keep whining about the results, even though you get presents left and right, and then forget about all the bad run and some kind of cooler. So it's really that I have that in mind. Like, what can I do? I think I'm definitely ahead of all them. But what can I do to even maximize that? We're like, okay, this is just like, do I just grind it out and wait for better times in a way? Or where do I put my effort into just like, again, to just have that little challenge for myself before hopefully when the Corona situation allows it to spend more time in Vienna next year or this year now. Play Rene a little on higher stakes as well.
All right, looking forward to that. Yeah, we're in the same time zone usually, so that's gonna be fun. Obviously, you spend a lot of time on Pokercode and on coaching there. I went briefly. No, not actually, not briefly. I think I spent 3, 4, 5 hours watching some of your content. A lot of good stuff in there for sure. Therefore, you mentioned you play a lot of 200 and Zoom right now, and you clearly feel like you're beating those games, right? What is it about your average?
I'm pretty positive on that.
What is it about your average 200 NL Zoom player that makes them a 200 NL Zoom player and not a higher stakes player? What do they often do wrong? Do you have a couple of tips?
We have different groups. I just restarted all my labeling because they were like some old notes, etc. So I sometimes like to start from scratch, especially when I have been off the tables for a while. And it's really, really interesting. We have that old guys where I still know the name from 5 years ago. We're like, I don't know what is wrong with them, but something needs to, like, not making the next step for 5 years and grinding that out for 1 BB per 100 and winning like not too much rake back is I can't see it. Maybe other people, maybe they are living somewhere where they make the best living out of that, and that's just like the easy job. Maybe, I don't know, but for me it's like, yeah, they will always play the same and are not really thinking things through, right? And that is mainly that big group of playing more or less value only, waiting for presents, overfolding all small spots, and then having it when the pot gets big every single time, right? It's like the typical biggest mistake, like not 3-betting the big blind pretty much at all, or playing a jacks plus ace king range there. That's one very, very large group you have in the Zoom 200 pool. Then you have a group of the kind of solver-based new fast learners, right? People that rised up in poker in the last years, or maybe it's just 1 or 2 years, because it's so easy to learn poker these days. Right? It's like Pokercode is helping, every solver is helping, Poker Ambition is helping. There's so much great. You can watch you play, you can watch me play. There's so much good stuff out there. Back then we were sitting there with pen and paper and thinking things through. So this is just an acceleration for your level of the poker game. And there are some great players, and they just have the problem of like which games to play in a way. Where do they get into? Back then we had then 200 running, 500 running with lots of entries. We had Zoom 1K running. We had normal regular tables. Shout out to King 10 of clubs, just like infinite of those. And right now it's about a lot of selecting, right? I think you can very, very easily and fast get up to 200. but then what next to build your bankroll? So I think lots of people can be already very good, but are somewhat bankroll capped. So I just added someone of the good racks there in Skype, and just like, yes, he is sometimes here adding this 1K table, but then it's a shot that hurts him already, right? Five times the stakes. What is in between? Do you add, I don't know, 400, 600 on like some sites? It's just way less action than, I don't know, 7 years ago. This is the other group. And then you have I don't know, the South Americans take over, the crazy guys, right? It's like I don't know, like
they want it too much.
It's like I don't know whether it's just the nation read there, but let's call them the ego group, where people are really overdoing it. We're like, I don't know whether, I think people play differently against me just because they know the name. I've talked to some people and they just confirm that they don't get called by ridiculous everything in those, I call them the black-white situations, where like you leverage a lot, right? And it's like you either have it or not, where I just like, it feels bad, but I always have to have it. I'm so sorry, but it's like, if you create a spot where villain is forced to fold 80%, if they take that as a 50-50 spot, it's like, because it's like, yeah, high player, he will have his bluff. Just like calling is more fun than folding. So it's like, that's the big problem I'm fighting right now, because I can't help myself and sometimes need to press that button. But yeah, that's like something like that. People who are really overdoing it and maybe taking things personal. I don't know, maybe big egos involved. And you have that. So it's really that nitty group where you just like keep hammering on as long as they are not interested, and just fold when they show interest. You have that ego group that you just need to play. I never try to outsmart them, because I cannot look into their brain. That's too crazy for me. I try to stick like somewhat close to Pio and actually call bluff catchers more often than I should. So it's like that until I gain more knowledge, maybe. That group. And what was the third? I forgot already, but it's like really
like the GTO guys.
Yeah, the different
that are more capped
good
by
you have
game
good
selection.
And then not talking about these are all regs, right? So obviously we have the typical Zoom fish, like we have those 12-4 guys clicking through until they have kings plus, then min 3 betting and stack off any board, right? I mean, this is the daily business, and you still have like those 40-0 guys. But this is just I try to group the regs in a way to have an idea, because I won't collect a sample or do the review for single regs. So I need to group them. And for the recreationals or really bad players, there's just worth to look at them as really individuals, where like I try to really focus my notes, especially on those timing tells, sizing tells, whatever, because this is where the money comes from. And they are every I don't want to use the word, but every whale is an individual one. And yeah, it's just what I try to focus on. And then I think, yeah, they are really, it's so interesting to look at it. It's like some people where Zoom 200 is definitely the end of their career. I mean, who played that for 5 years won't make the next step anytime soon. And for others, I think it's
you're in a different mindset. You're in a mindset of going downwards. You have to then change something radically.
Yeah.
Else.
And then the others who are just like on the edge of like probably adding higher stakes, etc. And yeah.
I also find it's probably also very difficult if you're so used to just firing up your 200 on Zoom. Like I said, it's an environment where you can control everything. The pool is always running, so you play when you feel best, you plan your breaks. But then when you have to make that switch to like adding sides, normal tables breaking, a very big part of your attention is going to go to finding games, closing games, not getting grimmed, opening other sides. So it's actually, you will have a lot of trouble coming from Zoom. And I think a lot of players, they try it for a little bit, but then they immediately go back to Zoom because it's just so much more comfortable. Yeah. You have to go through the pain a little bit, because in the end, higher than 500 mil Zoom doesn't really exist. So if you want to make it to higher stakes,
Zoom is like probably one of the toughest limits out there. It's like you are still playing sometimes. I mean, you have your recreations there as well, but you have like high stakes regs showing up there every day.
Yeah, because it's just like, there's nothing. Let's see if okay, I'll add a 500 mil Zoom.
It's like the praxis. It's like the lab in a way. Just like when you want to fight, it's like the battle arena. It's like this is always more or less always running, at least.
Yeah, it's if you're interested in making the most money now, 500 Zoom is probably not the place to go, right?
Yeah.
Going to your poker code product, I want to ask you something that you mentioned, because you were talking about how many strategies can be GTO, right? I remember you showed, okay, this is a min bet only, this is a mix, this is an overbet. EVs are all similar. I mean, it's a solver, right? I explained that myself as well. A solver, regardless of what options you will give him, he will play these options perfectly. So deviations in EV will always be minimum, right? It's as simple as that. And then you mentioned that you like to sometimes choose an alternative approach, or that there's benefits in choosing an alternative approach than what the rest of the people are doing. Could you maybe give an example of that, of how you might use a not the most GTO strategy, but a strategy that you think helps you well because it puts your opponents maybe in a difficult spot, or you understand that spot better?
So it's really that understanding of what the EV means. Lots of people take that as a given thing, right? The EV that the solver shows you is your EV taking that line, playing against someone else who plays the solver optimal line under those circumstances, which is the most wrong thing in the world, right? We are playing against people who are fucking things up every day. You see that with yourself, right? I see that with myself, and probably our average opponents. Maybe they don't see it, but we see it that they do that even more. So it's really that what we need to keep in mind. And then is something, not that I mean, making something different than the pool, to just say like, okay, I do something differently. Let's say like everyone opens 2.5x. If I can do something else with without losing solver EV in a way, I'm 1 out of 100 who does that, so I will do it better than the others because I studied that every day. They see it 1 out of 100 times, right? Might be as easy as like min raising the button instead of 2.5xing, or 3xing the button instead of 2.5xing. Might be an idea. We can go into lots of detailed spots there, obviously. But what is even more important than just like deviating from what everyone does is really giving those challenges to people that are tough to fight against, right? The solver will find the perfect reaction. But let's face it, right? Big bets make it easy, for example. Right? Big bets allows villain to play, let's say we pot bet, he is more or less allowed to fold 50%, which, well, the first 40% will be easy folds because it's just like you have nothing, right? I just have like ace king 4 in mind. Well, like you bet huge, the solver suggests a huge bet for certain reasons, that's super cool, but you force villain to play perfectly with all his 8-9 offsuits. Right? Instead of checking back and letting him play and find the right lines, right amount of bluffing, right whatever, with his full shit. Right? So there is, yes, the solver will answer perfectly against any sizing, but maybe like other things are more interesting sometimes. Right? For example, 3-bet pots out of position. Let's take a board like 10-5 deuce rainbow. Right? If we say big blind versus button, that's a board where mainly just the big size exists in theory, or the solver suggests that. But yeah, because the small size, every hand that in position has, plus given his positional advantage, is just a call against like a quarter pot or so. We will see spots where they are allowed to fold like 3%, where what is happening in reality, what is tougher for maybe not the greatest players in the world, well, defending correctly against small sizes where they need to call 100% of their range or have some raising range as well to continue with their weakest shit, might be more interesting. You can force them to split their range pretty early in a way, right? By just like having certain knowledge, right? Against some players, I like to keep the betting lead a little more because I know what their reaction is. That's the more natural thing. But just I bet small, you call when you have something, you raise when you have something very good, you fold when you have nothing. That's what I can look into the future. But if I check to you on a certain board, I have no clue how you build your betting ranges. But if I know that, or I gain knowledge through what you do there, this might be way better, right? I have, for example, if you look at a solver again, let's take that 3-bet pot out of position. You will see on something like 8-5-3, you will see lots of big betting and lots of checking. And on the checking, you will follow up with lots of check raising, right? Because your position, you have the positional disadvantage, you have the advantage right now, you want to get the money in the middle now before there are more cards in position that villain can make use of, like using his positional advantage and just knowing more about that board then. Where against some players, it's like I want to see those two lines as the same thing, pretty much. Big bet or check raise. We both have the goal to get the maximum money in the middle right now instead of waiting for later. And well, sometimes I'm playing check only against people who overstep there or who give me information about their hand strength with their stabbing strategy. Against some people who are very passive, I just bet all the time because this is how I achieve getting the most of the money in. And this is just, I want to more understand incentives and see it as something. I'm the one. I split it up. I'm sure you listen to that into like action game and reaction game. And whenever I'm in action game, I'm the one setting the parameters, and I'm not playing the solvers. I set the parameters in a way, or I try that, which gives villain a puzzle that is tough, right? If it is obviously a puzzle that he has seen 10 times already before, because this is the solver he runs all day, he will solve it. He will do it in a good way. If I give him a puzzle he hasn't seen but is an easy puzzle, for example, he is allowed to fold 70% of his range. Let's say I just overbet jam on that 8-5 deuce board. Might be a puzzle, but it's easy to solve. Or I find a puzzle that is maybe a little tougher. Right? While the other part, the reaction game, is just finding out a lot. Right? It's like I made this morning already the note. Bets big face up hands in position on boards where big bet does not necessarily exist. Right? It's that type of player. I know. I guess you know them. It's like that. He has king queen on king 6-4. He bets big, just because he has king queen. This guy has bottom two pair on kind of a similar board. He bets big now because it's like, yeah, get the money in now. We're like, okay, you need to, again, to see the bigger picture and understand that. What does it mean? Well, his small betting range is fucked up, right? You just overfold everything, and when he bets small, you just really kill him, right? And go a little crazy. Where again, I like spotting those game trees where people are just worse in and didn't study. I think everyone is quite okay in, let's say, the c-bet, then having a double barrel strategy, but people are really, really bad in sizings in the delayed game tree. I myself am too, right? It's kind of the wild west of the mid stakes, right? It's like everyone is like over betting, small betting. It's like betting their hand strength. Some people are crazy over bluffing. Some people are never bluffing. It's really the wild west, and just stuff like that. And this is where I don't care about the stakes, but the game is making me fun. It's really that figuring that out, making those notes, evolving as a player, having kind of new strategies. Right now I'm working, for example, one of my topics right now is the delayed min betting on like high card boards. It's like, I guess, I mean, I'm sure you did lots of stuff like that, like, or monotone board.
I've tried everything, Goose. I've tried everything.
Ace jack 4 sometimes goes check check, turn is a king. Let's put the freaking min bet out there and fuck them up, and let's see, right? We're like force them to defend their pocket sixes, but they won't. Right? It's just like those ideas where like I talk in those terms already. Like I force him in theory to do something to answer the puzzle I give him with a certain strategy, but it's easy to pretty much have those thoughts that like, where will they do mistakes? Right? If I right? It's again like, for example, let's make one more example: blind versus blind. Right? What is the board? We get a queen 5 deuce rainbow board. We see bet small. Turn is a 10. Right? If you look at the solver, you see lots of now 180% 2e sizing. Right? The sizing that is linearly going directional in, because you have the straight advantages around that. Villain is not really nut protected, not having tens. Queen 10 is the strongest hand probably now. So something like that, where is that the best line though against humans? Right? Is it like, it's like against the solver, it's slightly better than maybe another big bet. But against humans, it allows them to pretty much just fold everything, right? We're like, hey, people can fold that. Yes, it's perfect against people who can't fold. But if your line means that you force villain to play perfectly, is it the best line possible? Right? So it's really that, it's when we talk on that level, it's like pretty much the baseline that we understand how the whole game works, right? That like it's easy to understand which hands are correct to bluff, what are the value bets, how, etc. And then it's actually going to like one more level to really say, okay, maybe giving up solver EV in a way, maybe play a fancy puzzle here, do something else here to really put the like force villains to make mistakes or give them the potential to make mistakes. And that can be just like different types of game trees that we build, or just deviating a lot by maybe even giving up EV on like, min raising the button can be a thing. Not for German extra rake though.
No, so yeah, indeed, you prefer preflop folds, right? That has more
I
EV
play a
for
little
you.
more 3-bet heavy than others, and I started 2.5xing even from under the gun.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? If you understand the rake impact has on the game, then and you pay more rake, then that's the logical consequence.
If you come now to Zoom 200 and you limp your small blind, I will personally drive to Rotterdam and slap you in your face. Like, it's just not okay. Okay.
Can I still do it on 500 Zoom?
I can't play 500 Zoom, so you can do whatever you want there.
No, but okay, but I'm allowed to limp the small bet is 500 Zoom, right?
That's okay. Yeah.
That's okay. And even then, I remember, especially with the whole rake story about limping, I read a lot. The whole story about dunk betting, and these were two things that I was just constantly doing everywhere: dunk betting, limping, and there were always so much stories about it. Yeah, but I find let's open up the topic about small blind limping, and then the other person immediately closes the topic because says rake's too high. Discussion closed. It's like, okay, but come on, there's maybe more to it.
If both players play perfectly, then yes. Stars
exactly, because like, okay, so basically no one in the pool limps. Okay, interesting. So if I limp, they have no fucking clue what to do. And then you look at all the leaks that are available in limp pots. It's like, okay, fuck the rake, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes people just close off a certain door too fast, right? The same with the dunking, with the flop dunking. Especially, I mean, 5 years ago, I was dunking, more than the whole pool combined, basically. And people were saying, yeah, but I run a dunk in the solver and it doesn't really generate much more EV. I'm like, yeah, okay. Indeed, like what I felt like wait.
You wouldn't probably dunk against the solver.
Exactly, right? If I put that dunk out there, wow, he has a tough spot. Because he has to do this. I think people are going to overraise. Oh, if he overraise, if I come over the top again. Oh, wow, he's in a really shitty spot. So instead of looking at, that's kind of also what I got from your story. Instead of looking at, okay, what does the solver prefer? Let's do that. You're like, what does the solver prefer? Why doesn't he prefer the other options? And can I maybe use one of these options to put my opponent in a tough spot?
Yes.
Right? Because, for example, on the 10-5 deuce, what you said, if you bet small, if you play a strategy where then in position decides if he wants to build a bigger pot and can just realize all his equity, assuming that, we're playing as a solver, he's going to play later streets perfectly. That's not a GTO strategy in GTO. But if you bet small, the guy's going to float you with any two and overbluff 50%, and you then don't fold on later streets. Hey, fine strategy, right?
Yeah, it's really insane how, like, really seeing it that level and not being one of those, I try to copy what the solver does given certain parameters. Just like it's a new fun level of the whole game, actually. Like, I like so much just like running some sims and then maybe like just changing some parameters. Like, for example, okay, I know people are not check raising enough in certain spots. Okay, how does it look like if I don't allow them to check raise at all? Let's have a look, right? What does it change if I c-bet in the 3-bet pot and I know they are not raising at all? Let's just double check on that. How does the solver EV then change? What incentives are given next? And so on and so on. Right? It's like I'm actually like my biggest favorite move right now is the 10% river donkey. That's a really nice one.
Applause for Go0se here. Yeah. Big fan.
Yeah.
When I hear 10% and even river dunk in the same line, I mean, you're making my day here. You're making my day. No, but it's. I think a lot of players get it wrong. They think they have to play like the solver, but that's not the point. You have to figure out, how does the solver generate EV in a certain line that he does? What can I learn from that? Take that knowledge to the table. We both like to ask the question, where does our EV come from? I remember before I launched my course, I shared you my the things that I was going to talk about. Do you remember that? You're like, geez, it's exactly, you talk about exactly the same things as me. And even though we never talked any poker strategy together, right? Yeah. Where does my EV come from, for example, is a very big question in my philosophy, and definitely a very big question in yours as well, from what I've seen. Because if you know where the EV comes from in a strategy of the solver. And as you just said, in 200NL on the Zoom pool, there's people who deviate a lot, 80% probably. Then what the solver actually does is useless, but why it does something and how it generates a V, and then applying that with the question, where does my value have to come from versus this player? Now that's some valuable information. Then we can make some high EV plays.
It was really like such a fun talk. Like we know each other from the tables, but actually we never battle too much, I guess. And it's really that like just meeting and like maybe seeing like some things, just like having so very, very similar ideas. And then actually we agreed like a great thing to share here as well, that it's like, okay, I'm the cash game head coach of Pokercode. You are doing the coaching for Poker Ambition. But I don't see like the two of us as like competitors at all. For example, we're like, yes, we are more focusing a little on like, yes, everyone who is interested in having more fun in poker, and this is really for everyone. And I guess you are more on the university level, right? Maybe you have those too, right? Some football analogies or FIFA card games, but that's really like for the mid-stakes players who really want to get to the top. We're like, right, I'm happy to help everyone who is that, like pretty much like me in my early career, just like who is happy with the local league and wants to beat up the players in the home game, because actually it's not like they cannot learn from each other. It's like so fun to see where like I talk about hand histories from like a random Vegas live game, and it's like still the same analogies work, right? And it's like, okay, them teaching them the lookalike and the dice principle is just like, they're like, oh, blew my mind, right? It's like really crazy. And this is how I see it. We're like, right, first thing I probably recommend everyone who is like, hey, I want to dig even deeper and I'm like part of Pokercode, but there's mainly just you as a cash game coach. I send them over to you, right? If they are like in the right position. And it's like, hey, if someone looks at like, wow, Poker Ambition, yes, great, some seminars, but the whole course, it's like, whew, maybe too expensive for like what I'm aiming at. And then maybe something else is the perfect option. Where like, I love it so much, and I'm the biggest probably Instagram follower on YouTube, just watching all those little videos because I just think like the way we think pretty alike there. I just like everything that is thrown out there. And yeah, I mean, if you have seen me watching the Twitch show every now and then, definitely as well.
Yeah, I remember already since the beginning, man. You were a loyal follower on our Instagram when we just started out with the CFP in Rotterdam. No, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Actually, I remember I got a message that you were giving a shout out. You said in one of your lectures, yeah, go check out Jared Man on YouTube. Go check out the Wacko and the Wacko Show on Twitch.
Sure.
You know, these guys, you know, they like to play around. You can learn something from them. So I
like
definitely
lots of people ask like, what is the correct, like there's so much great free content out there, but there's so much shit free content out there as well. So it's like, you gotta help them out a little. And pre-select a little the good stuff, right? This is just where we need to team up a little there, and that's just like, I mean, it's so great. Actually, I just found out like Carrot Corner, they're doing a fun job there as well. Like even they are more solver based and maybe not maybe a little less creative. I will talk to them soon and find that out. But yeah, definitely like there's good stuff out there when you're in the Twitch streets and like poker. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember actually someone sent me a message yesterday talking about that. Like they thought it was humbling to see that I would also recommend other programs, for example. For example, we're having you on, right? Shout out to Pokercode, right? But like, because I don't see it necessarily as competitors, you know. And also, for example, you can have a Pokercode subscription and also get my program. Why not? You know, I'm sure a lot of people who have a Pokercode subscription also have a Run It Once subscription, right? I mean, Run It Once, everyone has a Run It Once subscription. I have a Run It Once subscription. Shout out to Run It Once as well. Shout out to everyone. You know, because I think everyone, you know, there's good content out there, right? I think for coaching, there's just a lot of good content out there.
What we said
you have
before,
a lot to choose
like
from.
really that, like we are in times where it's just like so easy to learn fast with all that help. Like whatever we had to learn like throughout the years in the beginning, this is just, you can learn it in a couple of months maybe, right? You won't learn the experience we might have in certain things, but just like the pure knowledge about the game and like how it works is just pretty easy. And this is just, I mean, we should see it as a beautiful thing, right? Because it's a very fun game, and like the more detailed it gets, the more fun it can get at the same time. It's not that like a big dark thing and no one knows what's working, and like that's actually my favorite word. It's like, can you tell us what is working and what is not working? That's like something like, okay, great, write a book about it and publish it in 2 years probably, and it's all wrong that you write down there. But it's like, I just love to see all that.
Yeah, that's something I like about more sort of principle type coaching, like you do as well. For example, if you look at our main program, the mechanics, and if you look at my technical overview, I don't talk about how to play 3-bet pots out of position, for example. Everything I talk about and everything that I put in mechanics, I try to make as timeless as possible. So these are just principles that will never change, no matter how the game changes. And they apply to both tournaments and cash. I want to make it as broad as possible, right? And timeless as possible. Because indeed, a lot of courses, 2 years from now, it doesn't apply anymore. If you go too specific on, okay, this really works right now. And then when you're finally done writing the book, you have to start in the beginning again, because what you said in the beginning maybe doesn't apply anymore.
Yeah.
And in the end, it never comes out. So that doesn't really work. Looking forward, you mentioned about obviously there are some restrictions now in Germany that allow you to, I don't think, play higher than 200 NL Zoom right. It's also again interesting to see that you again went inwards for a challenge, right? You're challenging yourself instead of having competition at the tables trigger your competitiveness. So that's, I think, interesting to see as well. But you mentioned maybe going to Vienna again, maybe certain trips. What are your poker goals going forward?
I mean, right now I will do lots of stuff for Pokercode. So I'm in touch a lot in touch with, you know how it is, like when you prepare videos and theory and stuff. So it's really like you are still in touch with the theory, but it's like different when you're sitting at the table again, right? You see weird stuff. It's now how I just described. Okay, now I know again who my guys are there, just after a week, pretty much. So I plan on going to Vienna more often. Again, I planned it last year already. The last 2 trips I had to cancel both of them just because of Corona. So I hope that gets better, that I just can go there sometimes, meet friends and grind like 1 week of real poker. And that would be good. It's like still open whether maybe at some point in the future I will live in Vienna again. We'll got to discuss that together with my wife, but it's like, yeah, is an option. So I definitely want to still stay fresh in the game. It's not like poker is 100% over for me. Maybe I start battling a little more again, and I think I can make it there pretty quickly to like have a decent win rate in like solid games as well. And yeah, that's a plan from now on. Pretty much seeing what the year brings, how much traveling is okay or not, and yeah, that's the main plan.
Mainly sticking to cash games, no more MTTs.
Yeah, that's just I mean, as long as I pay taxes in Germany, MTTs is just not a thing. MTTs is maybe just like going on a fun trip, but the MTTs I played before just do not make sense when it's like when you pretty much only can use your own money. So it's like when staking or buying shares or even swapping is just not possible because of the like how things are taxed in Germany, and I don't want to do anything wrong. And so it's like, yeah, you can find me maybe in Barcelona playing the main event, something like that, right? But I won't fly to Vegas and play like 25Ks every day. So I would love to just like, again, take some people, like, I don't know, fly to Mexico or Thailand and grind scoop for 2 weeks or something like that, to just have that whole feeling again. And then I mean, maybe I didn't do too much short stack. I think I should still be fine. But maybe I select some events there and play a nice schedule that then fits to my skills that I'm sure of are there. Yeah, no clear plans there yet, but I can see everything.
It looks like possibly also a good combination, right? Going all in poker for a couple weeks in Vienna, coming back to your hometown in Germany to relax. Maybe you can find a nice balance in there. If you're gonna go back to the high stakes cash game grind, what do you think is one of your greatest challenges that you will have to overcome? What is like maybe some of the weaknesses that you still have to improve on to
It's like not that they are
to
like
beat them.
the clear big ones. It's more the every spot maybe going a little deeper again. It's like after now since June not working on like or reviewing gameplay in depth for what is it now 6-7 months 6 months, yeah. Obviously it's like you lose things a little, but I think since most of the high stakes table are running about a kind of a bigger spot anyways, it will be fine. So it's like, and seeing which regulars are playing there, it's like not that it makes my like makes me shaking. It's like I'm not really scared of that competition there too much. And I'm in like I'm a lot in touch with Duty, who like had another 2 great years behind him, like crushing exactly those stakes, sharing lots of thoughts and stuff like that. So I think it's when you are not forced to just really think things through all on yourself. It's just always an accelerator of just like getting back into the game.
All right, then I have my final question for you. Then I'll give it over to Adam, and then we're gonna wrap it off. If you could pick 3 people, okay, to help you get to a higher level in your poker career, guys, girls, and you had to go, you go in a house together, like you mentioned, maybe in Mexico for a couple months, and you're really gonna go all in to try to become the best of the best. Who are 3 people that you would include in your house? You can pick anyone, dead or alive.
This is
Stu Unger, I don't know, you know.
I didn't expect that. So best of the best. So I
think about you know, you need 3 different, maybe 3 different angles, you know.
Yes, but it needs to be, if it's really in the house in Mexico, I need 3 people I get along with as well. And you need
that's important.
That's
yes.
very important. So I think there are some people I would love to have a look into their brain, but not more. So they are out pretty much.
Who didn't make it because of that? Now I'm curious. Who are you curious to look into their
I
poker
don't know
brain?
whether I can call out names here, but
I mean, for example, I would be very curious to look in the poker brain of Stefan. 11222.
Yeah, actually, he might be an option. I didn't think of him so far. I just don't know him like how he is privately, but I think he's just like, he seems to be a cool, relaxed guy. All right, I take Stefan with me. Let's freaking go. I take Stefan with me.
All right.
I take Uri Pelek with me.
All right. Shout out to Uri Pelek.
And
we got a nice team going on here.
Maybe someone who makes a decent cook at the same time.
Well, from what I was told in our first podcast, Joris is used to be a chef. Has some entity inputs.
Yeah, he won't make it. No. That's tough. So we got. It's about getting the best, not making the most money. I don't need a scripter right in my house. So
I mean, whatever you think is necessary.
No, I take Dudy with me as well. I think I'm fine with just chatting with him as well, but it will be like a super relaxed situation then. He's pretty close with Uri, I guess, and I like their way of like looking at strategy, even though I was never really involved myself. And then Stefan is like the special other kind of like other. His brain is definitely working in a different way.
He's the special one.
He is definitely the special one. Yes. And I think I've just seen pictures and talked or like have seen like, or was Dudy talking to him, and he was chilling for like, he's not locked in like a Russian building somewhere. Wasn't he like chilling in Costa Rica with Lucky CPS and others and stuff like that? So I think that gives me enough proof for like him being cool to hang out with.
Yeah, you need to be able to drink some Coronas at the beach with him afterwards.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I always have that image of, okay, if it's just someone who locks himself in the room, runs the solvers all night, and has never seen sunlight, that's like not the person I want to hang out with there, even though his poker strategy might be great. But I think Stefan is not like that at all. So yeah, let's take him in the team.
That's a fearless. That's a very good team you've established.
You got yours. Sure. I mean, everyone has to ask that question, right?
Hey, I'm the one asking the questions here, but yeah, I would probably include Steffen as well. I would include Linus as well because I've never talked any form of strategy with Linus, so
He
I
talks
mean,
very,
naturally
very
very curious.
slowly. That's the problem. It's like that. I don't know
I
whether
mean,
it's true for all Swiss people, but they talk very slowly.
to be fair, poker code content I also watch on 1.5 speed. You're Adam. When I watch Adam's content, I have to reduce the speed. When I watch your content, I have to increase the speed.
That's okay.
So yeah, Linus, Stefan. Who else would I include?
You didn't see any of the 4-tabling live videos then?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. And my third one, maybe I'll add like not really a poker player, but maybe like a Jared Tendler type of person.
Okay.
Or maybe actually I'll bring Adam.
Yeah.
Mindset, performance. Can you cook, Adam?
I can. Basic.
I'll take Adam along with me. So I have all the poker knowledge that I need with Stefan and Linus. You know,
That's a good team.
Sure,
That's a good team.
That's enough. And then I'll add some other dynamics in Adam.
I'll be the chef.
Also
at
for your
least
cooking skills.
my house is winning the drinking war, so I'd say I'm well prepared.
True. I don't think me and Adam were gonna do a lot of drinking there. Even though I heard Linus can drink, right?
I wouldn't.
And I mean, Stefan is Russian, so
Yeah, we got Stefan, yeah, Dudi is from a special area from Germany.
yeah, I was gonna say Germans and Russians they get a lot of drinking. All right, Adam, do you have any final questions for Stefan here?
I've got a bunch of questions, but I think they'll take us off on random tangents. So I think I'll be respectful of Steffen's time here. And yeah, I just want to thank you for an amazing podcast. I've learned a lot of lessons from your wisdom, and I feel like you've lived a very full poker experience in a short amount of time, relatively. Probably seems like a long time to you. But yeah, some really, really powerful lessons on self-awareness, seeing the bigger picture, perspective and reframing. So yeah, really, really powerful stuff. I feel like every question you've answered, I've been taking notes and I'll reflect on your answers. So yeah, thank you for your time, and yeah, I'll leave it to Rene to do the final closing.
Right, it was
Do you have any final words?
I mean,
Stefan,
just saying, it was lots of fun, lots of things actually like to talk about and to think about for me now in the near future as well. So definitely thinking about the questions I can ask myself on a more regular basis. Something I think is just cool, because just like watching how things can change probably is the most interesting thing. And like maybe one last story that I enjoyed just so much was finding I was like blogging a little in the German forums, like 2014 or 13 to 16, and just watching that 5 years later can be kind of a similar thing. Just like reading myself talking about, yeah, probably finishing, like not seeing myself in the poker area in 2-3 years from now was something fun to find in like a post from 2015, or like when they just announced that SNE got killed, but stuff like that. I just love that way of thinking, and yeah, it was a really, really nice talk to you guys.
what a great conversation that was with Steffen, aka Go0se.core Sontheimer. A lot. I mean, there's just so much. Me and Adam, we were talking about it. Like, there's so much questions that we might still have, but hey, at some point we have to call it an end. Just a little summary for you guys. Adam, what were your main takeaways? I know it was hard to take away only a couple things, but what really stuck with you out of this conversation?
Yeah, so many things came up. I've wrote about 12 important things, but I'll just mention a couple of them, which I think were the most powerful for me. One was his self-awareness, to always have this clear value system. And for him, that's basically his ability to navigate his landscape and know what's important and what's not. This often led him to make kind of safe choices, because that was in line with his values, and often turn down what would be classed as big opportunities to make more money by buying action and high rollers, or even by playing higher stakes himself at certain points of his career. So by having a clear value system, things that would be a conflict for most players, should I do this? Should I do that? He navigated them very easily. And also I was amazed by how little problems he has, which gets me onto his next skill, which I thought was very powerful, is his ability to use perspective and reframing. So when obstacles come his way, he's already treating it like an opportunity to learn from. How can I learn from this opportunity? So we almost couldn't pin him onto an obstacle, because he would never call it an obstacle. You class it as a learning opportunity. I think, Rene, at one point you said he said something about having a year of poker, and if it failed, he'd be like, wouldn't be a failure because I'd learned something. Even like if we could class as a failure from the outside, he instantly thought about how can I reframe this. So yeah, the perspective skills and his self-awareness in alignment with his values was very, very interesting to hear. And also, like, which we didn't really cover throughout, but just how humble he is and just willing to learn. Like, obviously he's played some of the highest games in the world, the one drop, the super high rollers, yet he's willing just to grind it out at the 200 Zoom pool because that's the game that's available, with no ego, no like just so humble, wants to learn. So so many things around that which are really powerful. But yeah, a million lessons that I could expand in another hour, but I'll leave it at that. So anything from you, Rene, which really stuck out?
Yeah, I remember I labeled him at some point as he was he lived very mindful, lived very stoic. I think a lot of things were necessarily unconscious, like all the things that I learned about mindfulness and stoicism. I mainly learned from actively learning from books or from looking up other people. And I think a lot of the things, how he thinks about life, came quite natural, right? Like that he didn't necessarily need to achieve certain things to feel a certain way because he already had everything that he wanted right there. Like success was already inside of him. Basically, he didn't need to go out and get 20 million to feel successful, for example. So I thought that was really strong. Also, the power of the questions, especially at the technical side of the game. Right nowadays, we talked about how much access we have to information. Basically, all the information is out there. So what becomes very important is that you understand the information correctly and mainly the why behind it, and then ask yourself good questions. Poker nowadays, I think, is more about picking and prioritizing what is really important and thinking about only that instead of learning new knowledge. What I think most people try to do is gather new knowledge, and then they end up with having a lot of knowledge which they don't necessarily master. And then while they are making poker decisions, a lot of stuff can come in their mind, and then they end up kind of choking because there's just too much information, right? And I think that's definitely a big problem. So also in terms of how he understands GTO, right? What is the objective of a solver? Instead of just copying the solver itself, it's one of the philosophies that I teach by as well. We also always have to understand how a spot generates EV. And then, as he mentioned, a lot of people in the 200 Zoom pool, they don't play like the solver. But because he understands how the solver generates EV in a certain situation, he can then estimate the situation in the pool that he's playing and make the highest EV plays, which are not necessarily what the solver does, but he learned certain principles from the solver to basically have the highest winnings at the games that he's currently playing. So that's very, very strong, a very strong philosophy towards improving also in the technical side of the game, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, like you said, we can go on and on and on and basically repeat everything he just said in the podcast because it was just all so much valuable stuff. So Adam, I would like to thank you again for hosting this podcast here with me. I would like to also thank the listeners again for tuning in for another great episode, and we're looking forward to see you in the next one. Now, if you learned something in this episode, we would much appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Leave a comment with your main takeaways, give us a 5-star rating, and follow the pod. This way we can reach more players and help them reach their big and ambitious poker goals. And if you want us to help you get to those goals, go over to pokerambition.com to find out more.